as yourself a client, local governments, of central governments, but also you are the front office of public services, of all public services, because in a local government you serve all the community, all the people for all their needs. So how do you deal as being both a client and a supplier?
Thank you. When getting the invitation to address this panel, I was quite puzzled with this formulation, client to the government. I would say that local governments are just a different level of governance. Sometimes they might be a client, but people see them as service provider. When we were putting the questions on the screen, one was the top question for quite a while, and I decided that I addressed that one. That was how to use innovation in improving services to citizens. That is our challenge. I'm representing NALAS, the network which covers 12 countries of Southeast Europe, so whatever I say reflects the situation in the whole region, in particular to the service provision in local governments. When we talk about what people expect from the public service, there are two major groups of expectations. The first one is jobs and prosperity, and the second one is infrastructure and quality of life. And if I can divide, the first one relates mostly to the national government, to the central government, while the infrastructure and quality of life part falls apart within the local government competencies. And the question is whether the local governments can meet those expectations. And I would say that's hardly possible because municipalities are underfunded and they are quite dependent from the central government. Each year we publish a fiscal decentralization indicators report which indicates where we are in the terms of fiscal decentralization, and I would just illustrate this with two figures. One is that only 6.3% of the GDP is local government's revenues, which is a half of what it is in the EU countries, EU 28 countries. So basically, this shows that the revenues of local government are insignificant. The second data I have is about the percentage of total public revenue. Only 70% of total public revenues go to local government, and in EU that's 25%. So in such situation, the question is how local governments can provide what citizens are expecting for. And we have several proposals. One of them is to boost the fiscal decentralization, because in these years we are facing a process of re-centralization, when central government has more of control over the local governments than it is supposed to be. Then the second one is aligning national and local priorities. Not always the strategies that local governments create are aligned with the national strategies, and especially it comes to the funding of these strategies and action plans. And simply any economic development which is a paramount for all our governments today is impossible without proper infrastructure. Infrastructure is mainly provided at a local level. And one more aspect is the cooperation with the central and local government at partnership basis, not always as a client or inferior superior basis. When we come to provision of local services, I would just like to emphasize several stages, several levels where we need to focus our attention in when it comes to innovation. The first is the customer orientation of the local public service. Citizens are keen to be treated as clients, and that's not always the case. This shift in the culture of somebody who is provided with the services by the local government towards being the center of the service needs to happen. And here innovation processes in how local government is run can be very effective. The second one is knowing what citizens need. Always, in most of the cases, local governments think that they know what citizens need, but they don't check it with them. And unfortunately, citizen participation is really underused in our region, and it can provide huge benefits, and I will address it later on. Then empowering the institution. We have to be critical towards ourselves. There needs to be a special focus on how local government institutions are developed, And unfortunately, public administration reform is always seen as central level, while a lot has to be done at local level, because that's the level that citizens face the first when they need some service. Then the aspect of responding to the needs is another one, and here innovation comes at special focus. What are the services you provide, and how do you provide these services to make them the most effective and also to make the most accessible to the people that need? And last but not the least is the openness and transparency, which is an issue as well as in local governments, and when innovation practices can be very beneficial. When we speak about innovation in local service delivery, the first question is what for? Innovation is not for its own sake. It's for providing quality services and also accessible services. And the first thing is to learn what people need. Here I would point out some of the tools that local governments used, like citizens forums, public hearings, participation in decision-making, co-creation of the budgets, gender responsive budgeting, if you wish, just to meet the needs of every single citizen in the community. Then responding to the needs means creating smart cities. That's the trend that NALAS is promoting in the region, and that many of the cities of our region are piloting, but that is not common yet. When we speak about smart cities, we speak about smart solutions in every possible sector of the local community, such as transportation, heating, lighting, etc. Then ICT has been mentioned as one of the ways to solve things for some part of the population. I feel that there are municipalities in our region that automatize many of the processes, like tax payment, birth certificates, provided one-stop shops for different services, etc. Another issue is providing a quick response to the needs of people, which means systems that can afford for the people to report their problems, their issues, and then in some short time period, local governments react to this. And last but not the least are the services for the remote areas. There are many rural areas in our region that need tailor-made services, so mobility of services is really important and to be tackled. I have just two more points to mention, if you allow me. The first one is about empowering social innovation. Citizens have to be engaged in solving local problems, and this is really possible at local level, maybe not that much at national level, but citizens need to be engaged, and empowering social innovation is really, really important. Last but not the least, there are plenty of great examples of innovation in different sectors in Southeast Europe, and governments must create conditions for scaling up those practices. This hasn't been the case until now, and I would urge national governments to think about what's the best in their communities that can be scaled up and replicated in other communities.
Thank you very much. Just one comment before Dushko gives the floor to Limon. There is a consensus between all the talks and the speakers about the importance of getting feedback from the citizens, and all the conference will have presentation of experience and innovation about measuring satisfaction, public hearings and consultation, but also you mentioned it's not only getting feedback, it's about involving them. Citizens looks to be part of the innovation process in the public sector.
Thank you, Marcel. Basically, somebody who has prepared the agenda made us to be innovative, because with less time we have to say many things. So I'm now pleased to invite Mr. Lemon Rodriguez from Singapore, consultancy-based company. And you have been involved in several activities of the Singapore government to help businesses. Business remain quite an important client that should support development of the countries, and at the end of the story, enable the country to provide services to any kind of client. So please say something about what were your activities and achievements that will make you proud.
Thanks, Dushko. Boosting growth and competitiveness amid a challenging global economic environment. That's a main issue businesses in Singapore face. So the government sets out to help businesses, including through developing a technology-based national trade platform, and B, providing a support package for small and medium enterprises, or SMEs. We begin with the national trade platform. The platform is an integrated trade and logistics information management system where government, businesses, and other stakeholders across the supply chain engage in data exchange and access various services. It is particularly important to Singapore, as the country is a trade and logistic hub and a highly trade-dependent economy. It seeks to improve operational efficiencies and foster innovation. How? It can increase operational efficiencies in at least 3 ways. First, it removes redundant processes. Previously, exporters, importers, and logistics firms had to use separate IT systems, resulting in multiple data entries. That won't be the case for the National Trade Platform, as it integrates disparate systems for trade permit applications, as well as electronic data exchange between government and businesses. Second, it auto-populates application forms, thereby significantly reducing preparation time. For example, shippers can auto-populate their application for trade permit declaration on the platform with information from their internal systems, which shortens the processing time by up to 50%, say from 3 to 4 days to only 1 to 2 days. And third, it houses value-added services, so the corresponding transactions can be completed on the platform itself, and more quickly. Shippers and freight forwarders, for instance, can apply for marine cargo insurance on the platform, which cuts preparation and processing time by up to 90%. Overall, the platform, to be launched late this year, is expected to generate over $440 million worth of cost savings for businesses annually. And how does it foster innovation? It hosts a developers hub and an app store where businesses, service providers, and IT developers can build and offer services and applications to support business needs. That's a mechanism for self-support between stakeholders. What's more, there will be a cloud-based enterprise resource planning solution for SMEs, so they can access it at a low cost to support their financial, purchasing, sales, and inventory management. And I thought it's good to share a good practice from this program. The government took a whole of government and a multi-stakeholder approach to developing the platform. For example, several interviews, workshops, consultations, and focus group discussions were conducted with about 200 companies to better understand their needs as well as to co-create solutions. Inputs gathered from businesses, including ensuring a security-enabled information management system and a positive user experience on the website, fed into the development of the platform. Before I move on to the support package for SMEs, a brief context might help. Representing 99% of the country's enterprises, SMEs contribute to nearly half and employ nearly 70%, or rather 50%, nearly 50%, or nearly half of the GDP, and employ 70% of the workforce of Singapore. So on the support package, the government's, for instance, productivity and innovation credit offers businesses 60% cash payout, up to $70,000 for key investments, including research and development, purchase of patented technologies, and workforce training. Additionally, the government's SME Go digital program provides funding support and advisory services to help SMEs adopt digital solutions, including analytics and mobile menu ordering. That said, more needs to be done to help businesses cope with their challenges. You might ask, what more can the government do? I have identified at least 2 main recommendations. First, enhancing the support package for businesses. As we speak, the government is engaging large telecommunications companies and financial services organizations to help SMEs implement digital technologies. However, this can be expanded to include support not just from these companies, but also from firms in other key industries, notably technology. The government can also consider providing funding for startups, especially after their early stages, as well as financing the operating expenditure of incubators. And second, upskilling the workforce, including in areas of high demand in the country, such as data analytics, data science, and cybersecurity, as digital adoption, will not be enough. And it is worth highlighting here to conclude that the world of work requires improved coordination between and adjustments in education, training, and social protection systems, as well as the labor market, among others.
Thank you very much, Liman. It's you can go for all the speakers as well. That's very interesting because what I will remember from what you say, it's not filling the special needs, for instance, of SMEs is not only being responsive, but it's being proactive. I mean, it's helping them to emerge, to support their development and their transformation for public policy needs. I mean, attractivity, economic growth with digitalization and things like that. And you ended with a question that is about training, and on Slido, someone in the audience asked a question that is worth first for Angela, but I think that Jelena could also answer. But since you mentioned, maybe all of you want to say something. What about, the question was, what is done in Montenegro for the training to make local governments and administration more able to integrate people with disabilities? But after, what could be done in training for public administration to deal better with special needs?
I think public administration in Montenegro have to be better informed about principles of approach to disability as a human rights issue. Because if we consider something as a human right, not something special, or we put some more efforts to provide it, we can collaborate, we can include persons, we can work with them. For example, when sites e-Uprava, when that is site where you can apply for a scholarship for best students or something, but some students who have a visual impairment cannot access that site because it is not accessible with screen readers. So when we talk about innovation, we have to consider it as a disability, as a human right issue, and then to give our best to treat people with disabilities equally as others. Because I think making website available for all persons is not that hard, like finding resources to find someone who will send application for a job or something instead of that person. Thank you.
I have one question for Limon. You have presented the success story of the reforms undertaken by the Singapore government. However, I suppose that there were some challenges between the stakeholders, maybe need for the SMEs to clarify their concrete needs and problems to the government. How the channels of communications were working, if there were any challenges? Can you be more elaborative on that?
I think one good example would be, there will be the influx of technology. I think a good example here would be the rise of the ride-hailing platforms such as Uber and Grab. And of course, that is a disruptive technology, and it will impact, the local, the existing local industry, the cabs and what have you. So what the government took was a multi-stakeholder approach. So they involved cab drivers, they involved cab companies, they involved private car rental companies, they involved the ride-hailing platforms, and the commuting public. And they had to struggle with finding the common interests. They found that the interests were different. But at the same time, if you analyze the issues, the concerns, in a very systematic way, they are interrelated and they are interlinked. And so, at the end of the day, they were able to come up, they were able to shape regulations which were informed by the concerns and issues of the different stakeholders. And the result was, they came up with regulations that would ensure that there will be licensing and certification requirements for private hire car drivers and vehicles to support the commuting public. And so, for instance, I'm thinking of like, the transportation sector. And it speaks for not the SMEs, not in general. So the idea here is we need to engage the different stakeholders. You know, you've got the private sector, you've got the civil society, you've got workers, trade unions, and other relevant stakeholders, so that we'll come up with solutions to challenges, identify the common interests, and of course, it may not be a perfect solution in the beginning. It will be an iterative process. There will be fine-tuning involved in the process. But I think the more important thing is you get all the stakeholders together, including SMEs, which are very important in the Singapore economy, involving the education providers, as I mentioned. We have, the importance of upskilling the workforce, not just, in the government, but also in the private sector. We have skills in high demand. And by engaging all of these stakeholders, we can move the agenda of growth and competitiveness forward.
Okay, thank you. Someone asked for concrete targets about our talk concerning the special clients. And Yelena, you say that local governments are not clients, they provide services to citizens. You have three kinds of clients here. SMEs, you have people with disabilities, and you have communities. And we had a question about training. As a member of the network of local government association, what is done by your network to support training and the improvement of the service delivered to these three kinds of clients?
I mentioned that public administration reform is an important process that is going on in most of the countries of Southeast Europe, but unfortunately it underestimates the role of local governments, and it does not provide systematic approach in developing the capacities of local governments. And here our members, the associations of local governments, step in. Most of them have training centers, and they provide continuous trainings on an annual basis to public administration from the local level. But it's various topics. There are a number of competencies, some 15 to 20 competencies that in each country local governments have, from solid waste management, water supply, and everything else. So it's impossible to cover all the simple areas of each of the competencies that they cover. But fortunately, most of the programs of these training centers focused on how to target different stakeholders within the municipality. As I mentioned, the citizens' participation is still underutilized as a mechanism, as a potential both at national and local level. It's more utilized at local level, almost none at national level, and this is the potential I see for development in the future. However, I would appeal to ReSPA, but also to the European Commission, to focus the attention of the public administration reform as well as for the local level, because that's the first instance that citizens face in their everyday lives.
Thank you very much. I have a special client, and I will satisfy his need. It's Dimitri. He wants us to keep the time. So I would like to thank you all and thank the audience for these vivid interviews. And thank you very much.
Yes, they deserve a great round of applause, please. Now, anything that stands between you and coffee will be very unpopular. Can I ask you please to come back at 12 o'clock exactly and enjoy your coffee?
Much dependent on a political patron. They can be get rid of fairly easy, right? It's just 10 people, it's 2 offices, and it's 100,000 euros a year, something like that. I don't know. So this is the paradox that these labs find themselves in. You have certain ones that are pretty big. Nesta is huge. MindLab is a big one. But you have really small ones who can be also very effective and can be very stealthy, right? They try to be invisible and still get their message across in order to, remain innovative and really do the dangerous work that they want to do. And this brings us to another point, is whether you want one central lab, like MindLab, which works across ministries and departments, or if you want several ministerial labs. Behavioral Insight Network is just focused on nudging, but still in the Netherlands is a good example where almost every ministry has its own little lab, its own little team of 2-3 people who focus on just that ministry and just that organization. Even the National Bank has one. Several independent agencies have one, and they then come together often to, review expertise, to change ideas, etc. But they're really independent and small. MindLab is, it's what we think of when we think of a policy lab, which is big and which has, therefore, because it's also so famous, it has more political control over it, or at least the danger of it. MindLab has the advantage that it's very popular as well, but that's not always the case. Then finally, you can have a practitioner-based lab, or an academic lab, or a combination of those. Now, these two that you see right here, the policy lab is at the University of Melbourne, which is where the basis is academics, like myself. Then there's the Smart City Innovation Lab in Lisbon, Portugal, where there's a combination of the two. It's the city of Lisbon working together with the Catholic University of Lisbon to create a combined innovation lab. And then there are the ones like MindLab, which are mostly practitioner-based. Now, they use a lot of science. They hire people who went to university or who have taught at universities. They have collaboration, of course, but they're mostly practitioner-based. Now, we don't know yet which one of this is the best one. Obviously, practitioners know more about, the word says it all, what happens in practice. Academics can take a step back and look at it from a hopefully more neutral perspective. So everything has its pros and cons. But it doesn't just have to be one or the other. You can make a combination of these things. Now, how much time do I have left?
I think just a few, but I'm now confused.
Okay, great.
Because I expected exactly from your presentation at least to have some kind of orientation or formula for us, all of here being from the Balkans. And now there is a lady from Albania, from Odisa. She will speak actually one of the very first innovation labs in the region. And I really expected about some standards, formula, but now you simply gave me an answer. There isn't any in that regards.
I know. Sorry, in academia, we're very bad at giving good answers. I can't give you a formula. It's dependent on the sector you're in. It's dependent on the organization. You'll have to adapt it to the culture as it is right now, right? You can try to implement or organize the most phenomenal policy lab idea that you have, but it has to be accepted as well. So you'll need to start small. Different countries have different cultures as well. It depends on which politicians are eager to do this, right? Does it have the political support that it has? Even things as what is the economic climate? Can we afford this or not, right? So there are so many factors on how big can you make it? How small can you make it? How can you make it government broad or just one ministry, one agency? Are you perhaps going to start with a small team of 2-3 people and then 2 years later show the ministries, see what just 2-3 people, what they did? We can do this in every ministry or agency and therefore perhaps create a bigger one. So you can start with a test case. Cities and municipalities actually are a perfect example of this. Many policy labs can be found at the municipal level because municipalities, in some countries at least, have a little bit more knowledge of what happens on the ground, and they can move a little bit more smoothly in order to create innovation.
Thank you. So the scaling up and scaling down is something that we need to focus on, even in this very important and completely new process of innovations for all of us. Maybe the very last message from you to the audience, in particularly Western Balkans, what would you consider as applicable in terms of innovation labs or any organizations in subject? Are there something that we should follow on and design and work within?
So whether we should focus on policy labs, is the question?
Yes, integrate them in our system. And
Right. Right. I think it is a good way to start. It's definitely not the final answer. The final answer is that every person in the government thinks innovatively and creatively. But it can be good to start with a small group of people, and even the biggest ones are just about 20 full-time equivalents, right? So only 20 people work there. To plant the seeds and to show how it can be done, to even sometimes function as a scapegoat. If an innovation fails, they can say, yeah, okay, but it's the innovation lab that did it. But then if the innovation lab has the order to be innovative, and if it's considered to be allowed to make mistakes, they can take the blame, right? And then continue onwards from there. So, yeah, I think it is right to focus on it, but, and this is very important, this is not the holy grail. We're not going to fix everything with policy labs. The whole of government is not going to be innovative if we have a policy innovation lab. But I think a focus on it is definitely good. One small negative effect of policy labs that I would like to briefly touch upon is the fact that a lot of these labs focus on design. As I said, they plant little seeds, right? They try to create a more innovative culture, and then they leave, right? So the pitfall is that they hit and run. They go here, they have a cool idea, and they go. They help it with, perhaps a little bit with implementation of the innovation, but that's it. So they have less of a focus on routinization of the innovation and to try to diffuse the innovation throughout all of the government, right? So for all of the government to get results from these policy labs and long-lasting results, they'll have to also have a focus on the long term. And I think most policy labs, most innovation labs, mostly have a focus on the short term. And this could be also a pitfall that you'd have to take into account.
Thank you, Wouter.
Yeah. Thanks, Wouter, for this first round of insights in what exists, what doesn't exist, what works, what might work. Also touching upon the two key questions on what kind do we need? Do we need to have a big blown-up thing, or is it more a cultural thing? And also your last slide on the dissemination and the hit-and-run thing. Very interesting, and we'll come back to this. I propose that we zoom in now into not the big picture anymore, but to some concrete examples. First starting, if you allow, with Tamara. Coming all the way, crossing the Atlantic, all the way from the beautiful state of California. You must feel very comfortable in this kind of scenery and setting. But actually being a local, because Tamara has been born and raised, I call it around the corner. It's not exactly around the corner, but here in Montenegro.
Yes.
And Tamara is currently working and building on the first innovation office in the state of California, specifically dealing with issues on the highest impact on health and human policies. So I think, well, quite important for many of us. So please give us an insight in what you're doing over there.
Sure, thank you, Nick and Goran and the whole ReSPA team. I'm very honored and excited to be here. And today I want to talk about redesigning government and how innovation becomes a strategic imperative as we are designing government. And I'm also going to share with you about how we are structuring innovation in California state government. So just a little bit about why I'm so excited to be here. As Nick said, I'm from Montenegro. Ja sam ponosna Cetinjanka I Crnogorka. Rođena na Cetinje, from Cetinje, which is on top of Mountain Lochin. I used to go to the beach right around the corner every summer with my uncle and sister. So you should check out Mogran Beach for all of you who haven't been in Montenegro before. And it's really special for me to be here, not just to be in my home country, but also to be surrounded by people who are passionate about the same things that I am, who are public servants or working with government in different capacities to push boundaries and make government more effective. So as I was growing up, there was this huge misconception, including myself, this misconception the government is only associated with politics. but really government is about delivering essential services that people depend on. And so most of my life I've been engaged in government from both ends, either worked inside of the government as a passionate public servant, or helped build solutions with government as a part of civic tech community. So this is where I work. This is California state government, Health and Human Services, and our innovation office is located in Sacramento, California, where most of the state governments are. We have a satellite office in San Francisco as well. And we are serving about 40 million people. California is one of the most populous states. And this is just one of my teams, and the reason I'm showing this picture is just because it exudes the passion, and so I think it really comes down to that, the passion that people, individuals put forward to drive impact together. I think this room is full of it. So this is just a sneak peek into our innovation space. We really like to think of ourselves as a small startup inside of government. Our walls are covered with Post-its. We have cardboards. None of this material is really expensive, but we try to leverage some of the lessons learned from the places that Walter talked about, and then build our innovation office with the minimum resources that we need. But we also have a lot of partners in Silicon Valley that come and help us out. So we are, in this innovation space, we are leveraging a lot of startup methodologies like design thinking, rapid prototyping, user-centered design, to really help us reframe our challenges, understand our customers' or users' needs, and then build more effective solutions. So this is just a quick glance into how we are structuring innovation in our office. We are looking at these three different verticals. Building internal innovation capacity is the first one, leveraging external innovation the second one, and the last one is about driving partnerships and collaborative communities. And the chief goal here is to cultivate innovation for a more effective government that works for the people, and here we're really thinking about delivering more effective services, policies, and programs, and by the people in the 21st century. And this by the people piece is all about engaging citizens and co-designing with them so that we can build more effective solutions. And here I wanted to list just some of the programs that we have under each of these verticals. I'm not going to talk about each and every one of them, but I will highlight some that I think would be useful to you to use as a model, especially because a lot of these are relying on technology that is open source and free, that you can just take and tweak and then leverage it in your spaces. So let's dig into this first one, building internal innovation capacity. So when we're thinking about internal innovation capacity, it is important for us to comprehend that there is a need for a mind shift, moving from how we are looking at things today and how we need to look at the things down the line. And so I'm looking at this and structuring it in three different areas: the systems, the culture, and the approach. So from the systems perspective, we need to move on from random innovation to more systemic innovation, and really be using data more effectively, not just building websites, but delivering digital services. From the approach perspective, and I'm referring to approach to solving problems, we really need to move on from the expert-driven, project-focused, and planning approach to more of co-creation with the end users, human-centered design, experimentation. And then from the cultural perspective, we are looking at moving from building hierarchies and controlling to really building networks, empowering, and rewarding merit. So in our California Health and Human Services government, we believe that innovation comes from anywhere, and good ideas come from anyone. So we are trying to empower people throughout the organization who do things differently by creating policies and programs that will remove the barriers, those hierarchical barriers, and really kind of eliminate that calcified kind of system that they are operating in. So one of the programs that we have put in place to address this and to get people from all different parts of government to engage and contribute is Open Opportunities. Open Opportunities was developed in the White House by Presidential Innovation Fellows during Obama's administration, and it is really aiming to empower people within government to work outside of their silos. So think of it as a LinkedIn, internal LinkedIn or opportunities marketplace. On one side, you have programs who post tasks, opportunities, and projects. And they don't have capacity within their program to work on it. And then you have staff, passionate staff, who has skill sets and experience that is going to address those opportunities, but they're in a different program. So essentially, this opportunities marketplace is allowing for people from one program that would traditionally never interact with the program B to work together. So the matchmaking happens. This platform is open source, and you can use it. You can get it tomorrow, tweak it, make it your own. It's implemented all throughout federal government, and now we are the first state government that is implementing it. So as we are redesigning government, one of the core things we are approaching and addressing is how people are accessing digital services. As you know, every day millions of people are interacting with government. We apply for social security, small business loans. We look for health services and information from our birth registries, but too often these outdated tools and systems make these interactions cumbersome. So we are in our digital services hub, we are looking at how can we make interaction with our digital services more intuitive, and what if interacting with government services was as easy as ordering a book online. So one example of a website or digital service that we just launched is California Immigration's Guide. Just came out last week. It's essentially one-stop shop for immigrants to access relevant information and services. And as you may be aware, during the current administration, there were a lot of funding cuts that were supporting immigrants. So California assembled a team, and we worked with immigrants in California to map all of their pain points, to look at what are the services they're trying to access information that they want to get to, but they can't. And then we did journey mapping and prototyping, and based on that, we co-designed the platform that I just showed you. So let's dig into the second piece, and that's leveraging external innovation, which is a really critical component where we need to shift the mindset of where we are today and where we want to be. And I think especially that's true for Montenegro, in a country where the citizens are not as engaged in their government as they could be. So we are looking at shifting from closed government that is closed by default, government that is seen as authority and internally focused, to the government that is open by default, government that is seen as a platform that builds for the citizens and by the citizens, government that is consulting, deliberating, and co-designing with citizens, and crowdsourcing solutions. So Open Data Portal and launching Open Data was a huge catalyst for us in terms of raising this momentum around innovation in government and shifting how people are interacting with government. The portal that we have launched currently contains more than 500 data sets. They were previously locked, and now they're released in machine-readable format. We were trying to be intentional every step of the way which data to publish so that they can satisfy needs that we see at the local communities there. As a part of our open innovation portfolio tied to our open data, we partner with civic tech community and academia to host hackathons. Vladimir Vulic will later give you a more in-depth overview of the hackathons and different sort of things they were trying to achieve. But I think we are very successful in using hackathons and engaging people who are not just programmers and coders, but community advocates to inform us what are the needs that they see in their local communities, and also work with our subject matter experts in government to build solutions and co-design solutions. I wanted to also highlight the two platforms that are also open source, which you could also take and tweak. And one is Find a New Way, and that is essentially Innovation Challenge Platform. It's our hub that lists government challenges, competitions, and problem-solving events, and engages individuals and organizations to address these challenges. So it might be interesting for you to take a look at and then consider it as a part of your portfolio. The second one is 1849, and this is essentially our version of Facebook for government. It's a digital platform that facilitates ongoing insights gathering, discussions, and brings individuals together to design solutions our state's biggest problems. Not sure if any of you seen OpenIDEO or other kind of crowdsourcing platforms, but we are trying to facilitate an ongoing teamwork here once we post a challenge, and then as well as continue to gather insights around what are the needs that the community advocates see and interact with them in that way. The third the strategic priority for us is driving partnerships and collaborative communities. We need to move away from silo structures where industry and academia are not engaged to more meaningful partnerships both inside and outside of the government. And we really need to look at not driving impact alone, but driving collective impact by inspiring shared vision and collaborating. An example of how we are partnering with academia and private industry, as well as Silicon Valley, here is Microsoft and Google are allowing for their staff to go on a sabbatical, and so we are pretty much snagging some of the most brightest talents from Silicon Valley and tech to come and work with us on specific problems in government. And so they come 6 months to a year, and then they leave. But we're definitely lucky to be so close to some of the brightest minds in technology. So what we do is we recruit the brightest minds from private industry. Sometimes they come from civic tech, sometimes from the private industry. We pair them with the dedicated public servants, and then together we deploy them to untangle the most important government challenges. I wanted to just share a quick kind of snapshot of some of the partners that we are interacting with very frequently, going from West Coast Design School, Stanford's Design School of Business, IDEO, Fuse Corp, Facebook, Google, and then
I see also ReSPA. I see ReSPA on this map.
That's ReSPA,
Yes.
is on the other side of the, right there, globe. But
that's just the thing you see here.
You don't see it, yeah.
The whole thing, one of the purposes and my goals is to become a part of the clique, that 70% of you that comes and mingles at every ReSPA conference. I want to figure out a way we can collaborate more effectively, and so these are actually some concrete ways, many of specific opportunities we can collaborate. So,
is this an offer for us?
So ReSPA could facilitate, but members of Western Balkan countries would partner with the United States and European counterparts. And what innovation offices, as well as our partners that we are working with, could share is resources, tools, processes, protocols, blueprints, and technologies. So the more we are informed about what areas you're working with, the more we can help and share these. I've gotten a very enthusiastic response when I asked if many of my partners in the United States, whether they would be willing to host a tour, office tour. So everyone is very enthusiastic. Please come to not just California, but East Coast as well. And then in terms of providing advice, we can share with you some of our strategic plans and also advise you around specific kind of areas. So in terms of visioning, strategic planning, action, and implementation planning. And then I would love to take advantage of the next 2 days to learn more about what you're working on, and then think of ways we can collaborate around specific opportunity. This is me, and I'll provide cards also.
Just, if you allow me a short question. Well, if you would be asked by the Montenegrin minister saying, well, I would like to have your advice. We want to establish innovation office over here. What would be, from your lessons learned in the office you're doing now, what would be like, knowing the culture, knowing the situation over here, what would be like recommendation you would give to her in this case?
Mm-hmm. I don't think I'm going to say anything new that wasn't shared previously, but I think in Montenegrin culture, like in every other culture, the buy-in is the internal staff buy-in is the first thing that we had to deal with. But we wanted to deal with it more systemically. So these programs that we put in place are to eliminate barriers so that staff from all levels, the very passionate staff who want to engage in their government and move things, they can. And so this is why it's valuable to create a hub in our place, in our platform, by which folks at the trenches can talk to the high-level government officials. So I would say create an environment in which you can get anyone who is passionate to participate, and then a space where you can fail fast, where you can experiment, and don't expect to make a miracle by night, you know. And I think Walter was talking about this: start small and then iterate on it. The funny thing that I think it's like a blessing in disguise. The way that this whole innovation movement in government has propelled was after the healthcare.gov website failed. I'm not sure if any of you have followed, but you know, Obama tried to completely transform how healthcare is provided, and so this healthcare.gov website was supposed to sign up people, but it wasn't working. And it was 500 vendors that was working on the website, and so they pulled 4 people from Google, and these 4 people, in 40 days, they've completely fixed it. And so from that they created a small startup in government. And so sometimes the disasters point to us that we need to change something. So artificially manufacturing disaster could be something I would consider if I was a leader in Montenegrin government. But the one that will really work and get to people at all different levels to become a part of a solution.
Okay.
Thank
many
you,
thanks.
Tamara.
Many thanks for the great presentation, the great insights. Many thanks. I'm sure many.
I'm sure that once thinking about disasters, being next to the sea, we will not experience tsunami, but I guess we will have tsunami of good emotions and vibes. And in that sense, I'm very happy that along with other credible speakers coming from the OECD, academia, and USA, there is also one lady, Jorida Taraj, who is coming from ADISA agency from Albania, and it is the reason why we invited her is actually that they are one of the very first in the region who dealt with very specific organizational issues, such as setting a laboratory for innovations. Walter talked about this, but now we are very much triggered what ADISA did and what is, according to you, the most success factor in your organization, looking back from its foundation towards now, before you actually invented the Innovation Lab?
Well, thank you, Mr. Goran. I'm very honored to being here today, and I'm very happy being part of this distinguished group of participants and speakers in this conference. I'm also very happy to present here the approach that ADISA has undertaken on serving citizens through innovative solutions. Well, I would like to start with what is ADISA, because most of you maybe doesn't know what ADISA is. ADISA stands for Agency for Delivery of Integrated Service in Albania, and it is a new and innovative state agency that was set up under the Minister for Innovation and Public Administration in 2014, which now is under the Prime Minister offices. And we are first and foremost responsible for delivering public services throughout designing, setting up, and administering front offices and integrated centers throughout Albania. As we were born under the Reform for Innovation, we are the leading part of the program of innovation against corruption and building a citizen-centric model for service delivery. What ADISA have done, okay, I will go back to the question that Nick made at the beginning. If innovation just happen or could be managed, well, innovation could not just happen. It needs to be structured. Okay, we cannot manage the unpredictable, but we can create the preconditions on raising the chances for good innovation ideas.
Which countries did you take as a role model?
Which, sorry?
Countries or any model. Did you take any role model once establishing ADISA and later on Innovation Lab?
Yes, Georgia was the first one that we took as a model for the integrated service centers. Also Azerbaijan, that has done a lot of in this point of view. What have we done in service delivery channels? We have opened the integrated office centers. Now there are 4 integrated service centers in Albania, which have enhanced and modernized the service delivery in Albania, putting some standards on the way of they were delivered, and we have put also the performance system monitoring, so we can count on continuous improvement of the center. We also have opened the call center, where the citizens can take information for 475 service information cards. Also, lately, we have launched the mobile application, Adisa mobile application, which is a new tool to get information about the services in Albania, and also to reserve the ticket for the service acquisition at this service that we had in integrated centers.
Are you satisfied with these services? We've heard from the previous speakers there is a challenge once setting such innovative approaches. Many times they simply do not work after some time. They are exclusively announced, but they do not function in practice. Do you sustain it? Do you follow it up? Do you measure satisfaction even nowadays?
Of course, we have in our integrated service centers, we have the citizens' voice, where all the citizens can put their complaints for the staff there and the services also. We have the system for compliant management, so we can track where the compliant is, if the institution has responded or not. We also have codified have made the codification of services in Albania. We have the National Public Service Database now, which contains moreover 1,400 services. And also we have done the re-engineering, which was on an innovative initiative with regard in improving the services delivery processes. So it took all three components, the ICT component, the legal framework, and the operational one. We have done this for 443 services, and we have now 382 improved services with a reduction for service by 25%. And the newest innovative initiative that Adisa is undertaking is the creation of the Innovation Lab. This is a pool to put new ideas and to find new solutions for public service delivery that we are using. And the last project that this is the first project that we are doing in our Innovation Lab is Adisa Mobile Units, which is very interesting. And we are going to use this for our integrated services in the remote area to serve services for people who can't access these services.
This is probably inspired by Azerbaijan, which means that
yes,
in rural and marginalized areas, the buses that are actually going throughout the rural regions, which do not have adequate infrastructures, are announcing to people, and they know that they can be issued for personal documentation or any other documentation that they may need. But since there is a very burning question on the Slido, posted by our colleague from Bosnia and Herzegovina, Ernest, how to explain to decision makers that reforms and innovations are necessary. You just mentioned as a last point that you founded Innovation Lab. How did you convince your politicians?
Okay, regarding to the reform, the focus of the reform is on citizens. They have some strategic view, need to make standardization, putting citizens first, whole of government, process reforms, and we had some innovative tools which are in the operational view to put this to implement the reform. So some of them are putting the principle of FIFO, first in, first out, which we have used also in the BPR processes, and the new services that we are going to implement are all using this principle. Another one is citizen feedback, performance monitoring, and we thought that all these are innovative initiative on its way. And why do not put this in a lab?
So your politicians, decision makers, found this methodology as a good one, also for their own functioning within the system. That is why you get this political buy-in?
Yes, of course. With the help of UNDP, we have started the creation of the establishment of our innovation lab. We have done the first workshop where we were introduced with the tools and with the manner how an innovation lab can work. And then we have furthermore used create the team. the core team which is going to be part of this innovation lab. And we have also made a roadmap in this innovation lab, which are the phases that we will pass around. And we are getting further. We have used some innovative tools here. We are using Trello to communicate in the real time. And we have set up the Addis Innovation Lab website. And so we have the first project, which is Mobile Unit Projects, Addis Mobile Unit Project.
Thank you, Yorida. The last question from my side. What is your main fear regarding functioning of this innovation lab?
Well, as we innovate, we recognize these fears. Failure to achieve intended results, and loss of control, lack of task. Also, we fear for the citizens if they do accept changes, if they have trust in us, or if they just think this is a catch for the government.
Also, if you allow me, two questions from my side. One being a very practical, and the other one, well, call it more tactical, strategical. The practical one being, well, how does it look like, your unit, in terms of numbers, in terms of profiles? I mean, how many people are you?
Yes.
And what kind of people are these? Does this need to be, I don't know, creative design people, or are they normal civil servants? I mean, what kind of, the size and what kind of profiles? That's the practical one.
Yes, the team is composed for 9 persons. They are from legal. There is an architect, there is a designer, there is a marketing one. They are for different fields, so they put their innovation ideas also.
And then the more, well, tactical, strategical one, if also you would be asked to give a recommendation to the other countries here, what would you recommend them from this first phase now in setting up in Addis, Albania, this kind of office, this kind of unit? What would be your recommendation towards the colleagues? What should they do and certainly not do?
Of course, they should keep their doing innovation, and they should create the innovation lab, creating the steps that they will follow, creating the roadmap, and also being part of workshops and study visits in the other innovation labs to see, and taking their innovative initiatives to put in and to develop them, taking different teams and so on.
Are we invited also to visit your innovation lab?
Sorry?
Are we also invited to visit your innovation
Of course.
lab? Thank you. So we have 2 invitations so far, one to the US, one to Albania. I'm very happy about this. Yes, and Belgium. So I guess, yes. 3.
Okay. Yes. I think this brings us back to the more overall scope, and therefore I would like to call upon Alex. Alex is working currently in Paris for the OECD in the OPSI, the Observatory for Public Sector Innovation. I think most of us are well know this part of the OECD, and I think it's very interesting to see how on the both questions on what Alex and with the colleagues in the OPSI, what they see in terms of what is existing and what works, and also how does the OECD foster the learning and the dissemination of this kind of innovative work. The floor is all yours, Alex.
Thank you, Nick. I'd like to start my presentation with a bit of a story. This is the photo of the Vasa, a warship from Sweden from 1628. It was brought up from the waters in the mid-1900s. And it was a prize ship of the then Swedish king in 1600s. But unfortunately, it set off and then it sank, and several people drowned. So when you see this museum, the Vasa Museum in Stockholm, you go, well, why would that happen? Sweden was a big naval empire at that time. It had plenty of experience building boats. And why would anyone go off in a boat that would sink on a day like this, where there's no wind or anything? What was that about? And as you find out quickly at the museum, it's not because anyone was drunk or incompetent, which was their first thing, but it was actually a structural reason. The ship hadn't been built right. Again, why would that be, given they were building boats all the time? So there are a few things I think that we can draw from it when we look at the history of it. One was that they put in an extra gun deck. Now, as many of you might recognise from procurement exercises, when you're commissioning a service and then you change your mind halfway through, that's usually a bad sign. Procurement exercises don't work well when you change your mind halfway through and add on lots of features. Another issue was that it had a lot of interest from the king. It was going to be his prize ship. Whenever you've got too much interest from a project sponsor, that's a bad sign. If they're really interested, you want them to be backing your project, but you don't want them that interested where they're micromanaging you and putting a lot of attention on the things that don't matter. In this case, how many guns it had and what colours the paint were and so on. There was a change of key personnel. One of the shipwrights, the main shipwright, got sick and died halfway through the construction. Again, if we're thinking about projects, that's never a good sign. If you lose the continuity of people, projects aren't usually going to go very well. There are also a number of warning signs. You had a captain that was very worried and who organised a demonstration for the Vice Admiral. They got lots of men running from one side of the ship to the other when it was in dock, and it started swaying really badly. What did the Vice Admiral do? He said, "Stop, oh, I wish the king was here." The king was out of the country at the time. Again, this is a bad sign when you don't have clear delegations and that decision-making is put off to the side. There was someone who could have said, no, this is something we've got to be worried about, but instead deferred to someone who wasn't there. The other remarkable thing about this was that you had an evaluation. There was such an upset over this ship sinking, which was a huge amount of resources, and you had all these people dying, that they ran a commission of inquiry, effectively. They asked, why did this happen? So you had your post-project review. But when it seemed like the answer was the king may have been to blame, suddenly it didn't really matter and you just put it to the side. The reason I bring up this thing is because this was an innovation project. This was a project where they were doing something new. This was a project where they didn't really know exactly what they were doing. This was a project that really involved uncertain delegations and responsibilities, and it was an opportunity for learning. Yet it happened 400 years ago, and all of these sorts of mistakes are still being made in innovation projects today. We know many of these things, but that doesn't stop us repeating the same mistakes again and again, and 400 years later again. So I think that's one of the key things that you should remember when you're thinking about how to get value out of innovation is, first step, recognise that it is an innovation. Unless you recognise that the thing you're working on is an innovation, if you treat it like any other project, you're not going to pick up the signs, you're not going to notice the warning signs that are inherent in an innovation project like that. You're going to continue on and repeat making the same mistakes again and again. So that's what one of my key things for you would be, is in thinking about innovation, is to learn from what others have done and what's happened in the past. That's the more that you see other innovation projects, the more you'll understand the nature of innovation, the more you'll be able to pick up on those subtleties, those little warning signs that mean you'll be able to avoid your prize ship sinking and multiple people dying. A couple of more recent examples that I'd like to point to that are happening. One is from our colleagues in Warsaw, in Poland. They're building something called Virtual Warsaw, which is a project for making the city navigable by blind people. It's building in sensors and mapping the whole city and its services so that blind people can use their phone to know where services are, how far it is, where they've got to go to access certain services. It takes hundreds of hours to train a blind person to feel comfortable in a space. This sort of project could have really huge consequences, and it's thinking about things in a completely different way. The other one I'd just like to mention is Mapaton, which is from Mexico City. Mexico City is a very, very big city. It's quite chaotic in some ways. They had their bus routes, but they didn't know actually where they went. The city didn't know where the buses went, what times they were, or how many people travelled on them, which, if you run a transport system, is a bit of a problem. So they ran a 2-week crowdsourcing exercise where they gave people effectively a game and rewarded people for catching the bus and mapping those routes. And in 2 weeks, they could build a map of the entire transport network for $12,000. Big, huge problem, simple answer, very quick, by involving lots of people. So again, innovation is always going to be really hard. You're doing something you haven't done before. If you're going to do it well, you really need to learn as much as you can from other people who have already been there before you, who've already learnt things. It'll make your learning journey much easier and much less costly. And that's what we at the Observatory are really here to help try and do. We focus on 3 main things. One, we look at trying to uncover what's next, what's emerging, what are these new projects and what they might mean for government. And we ran a big process last year and again this year, a big call for innovations. We received nearly 300 submissions this year, which will help us build up a richer case history of the practice of innovation so that we can pull out some of the lessons about what is it you really need to think of when you're starting this. We also look at how do you turn the new into the normal, and some of that's around this innovation lab work, building those processes, those structures within government to carve out the space for innovation. But it's also about understanding the innovation process itself, the different stages and the different considerations that happen at those stages. And it's thinking about the different skills and capabilities that are needed, that might be different to the traditional skills and practices that public servants have needed. So some we've picked out are, the need for public servants to become better storytellers, to bring people along with a vision of change, rather than just telling them this is what it's going to be, which isn't usually very effective. And our third area is trying to provide that trusted advice to jurisdictions about how do you actually do this? How do you make this work in practice? And at the moment, we're actually undertaking a country review of the Canadian public sector's innovation system to really understand the lived experience of innovation there and what are those cultural norms, those cultural values that are shaping their experience of innovation and what that might mean for how they should think about an innovation system as a whole. And we have a lot of resources, a wealth of information on our web and so on that would strongly encourage you to make access of or to get in contact. We have a newsletter that comes out fortnightly, which also points to some of these things. And we're always trying to learn from others. The reason our work, I think, is valuable is because it's built on the experience of public servants. Quite often, one of the problems you find in any jurisdiction is, like what I was saying, their projects happen under the radar. People don't necessarily talk about the innovative things they're doing. But if that happens, you're not going to learn from it. Mm-hmm. So the more I can encourage you all to share, not necessarily with us, but we would love it if you did, but with each other, the easier the innovation process will be and the faster you'll be able to get to the end result that you want.
Super. Thanks, Alex. So for the people that are not yet connected or linked to what OECD in this regard with the OPSI is doing, I think we can warmly recommend you to do so because they are doing fascinating things. If you allow me just for a moment, Alex, to play advocate of the devil and to, to throw you some things and say, well, we tend to learn from the best. So I see there are two dangers. One is a copy-paste attitude that we say, it worked over there, so let's do the thing also over here. And then it turns out that it doesn't function. Surprise, surprise. So what about the idea that maybe the journey is more important than the destiny? So how do we learn? How do you facilitate learning from the process? Not so much from the end result. That's one thing. And then, I even had a more nastier one, but I forgot now. Go for this one, I will think for the second one.
So there's definitely a risk of governments picking up something and going, oh, that looks nice, I'll have one of those. We all know that doesn't really work. The practice of innovation is that it's contextual, that it applies to a specific circumstance, a specific time, and a specific set of resources and skills and knowledge that was available. You can't just think, particularly for something that's really new, you can't think, oh, yeah, look, I'm sure it was hard, but if we just copy that, it'll work out. Luckily, the innovation process has an inbuilt safety mechanism. As soon as you start getting your hands dirty, I think the reality of that hits you pretty quickly. As soon as you start introducing a project into a different context, you go, oh, that's not what I expected.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's better if you can be aware of that up front and honest about it. But in the end, you'll learn that regardless.
Then the other thing that I had in mind was, well, what about the failures? Because these are the most interesting things to learn from. Now, as human as we all are, we are proud to show the best practices, the good things, and I think many of the cases that you document into the database, and also awards and prizes, and we also have a session tomorrow, it's about putting the best on stage. Absolutely needed. But there are many stages like this. But how do you capture the failure? Because there is a big risk that these things no one wants to share about. We completely failed here. This was completely... So how did you, or how do you do this? Or
Nick, I was expecting a nasty question.
More nasty?
Yes.
It's still early in the day.
Okay.
Yeah? Wait for the afternoon. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, one approach is you wait 300 years until someone else digs up your project and really gets into the nitty-gritty of it. The other is, I mean, it is really uncomfortable to share what feels like a failure. And that's why a lot of emphasis has to go in these informal networks. Innovation is inherently about trust. It's about, the act of innovation is about making yourself vulnerable. You're saying you don't know the answers. You're saying someone else might know more than you. And that's pretty hard for a public servant because it's questioning, you know, we're all meant to know the answers. That's why we were hired. We're professionals. So you have to find those trusted networks, those groups where people feel comfortable and safe to open up and go, actually, that project didn't work as well. And the alternative, the other thing is, I mean, a lot of innovators are pretty open. They're not necessarily able to be open in public forums or on the websites. But most people I know are pretty keen. If you see something that's inspired you, another project, if you contact the people involved directly, most of them are very keen to share their real lessons as well as the more formal, shiny lessons.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Before we close, we are really up to the time. I just want to ask you, since we know that OECD is going to organize a global innovation event next month, so there is a synchronicity between our conference and yours. We are a very small organization, but we really gave a lot of efforts to make this event a good one. Will you have any opportunity to uptake something from here that you may integrate and reflect on during your conference in Paris?
One of the bits of work that I lead is the work on the innovation life cycle and understanding how and when different innovation methods and tools are of use within the innovation process. And the thing that I learn, the more I hear of different jurisdictions and different countries and their experiences, is that everyone's in a different space. Everyone's in a different place, and there's so much we can learn from each other. There's nothing like hearing from someone from another country to challenge all of your assumptions about oh, this is how innovation works, or this is how the process works. So I think each of these experiences for me is very helpful in building up that bigger picture of the work we do has to appeal to and be accessible to many, many different people in many, many different contexts.
Thank you. Great. I think with this we have come to an end of what at least I found a very inspirational session, so thanks to Wouter, Leonida, Tamara, Alex, for all your efforts in preparing. Goran, also thanks to you.
Likewise.
And then, Dimis, can we hand over to you, to the Master of Ceremony role?
Sure.
It's yours.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentations. Thank you, Goran and Nick. I'm very tempted, and Nick just prompted me. My favorite quote of all times it's a paraphrase, it comes from a professor from California called Bob Sutton. And it says, if you want an innovative organization, you have to reward success, celebrate failure, and punish inaction. And Radka knows it off by heart as well. Reward success, celebrate failure, punish inaction. Thank you all very much, and please be back at 2:30 exactly. Thank you. The next session.
Bilo bi dobro da postoji aplikacija koja bi olakšala studentima komunikaciju sa studentskom službom tako što bi se elektronskim putem primale uplatnice i spiskovi predmeta studenata.
Volio bih da postoji aplikacija koju bi koristili moj klub i škola. Pomoću nje bih unaprijed upisivao termine za trening i na taj način bi svima bila olakšana procedura pravdanja izostanaka iz škole.
Ja bih voljela da postoji aplikacija koja pamti domaći zadatak. Ona bi se koristila na sljedeći način. Kad učiteljica kaže šta je za domaći, pritisnete dugme na kome piše stisni i on snimi sad zvuk koji učiteljica kaže. Dakle, kad dođete kući i bude vrijeme za rađenje domaćeg, samo odslušate to što je učiteljica rekla i to je to.
Throughout the Western Balkan countries, innovations in the public administration sector gradually became visible to the citizens. Macedonia introduced the unique National Electronic Register of Regulations, a web portal that facilitates the involvement of the business sector, civil society, and citizens in the legislative and policy process.
The most important thing about the ENR is that all the regulatory acts must be published there at least a number of days before they proceed in their process for their adoption into the Parliament.
The Centre for Development of Basic Competencies is currently unique in the region. Established in Serbia, it's aimed at recognizing and engaging the internal, pre-existing potential of individual public servants.
Ovo je ideja da sad sistematizujemo kapacitet ljudi koji postoji već u državnoj administraciji i da na jednostavan način možemo da sagledamo da li nešto što nama treba, postoji u nekom drugom državnom organu takav neki kadar da možemo da ga iskoristimo za neke naše potrebe.
These examples followed a framework for influencing public sector innovations, which was suggested by OECD and Sigma.
The most important is to have focus and to have good plans, but also a good understanding of what are the needs. That mindset needs to be strongly embedded both in the citizens and in the government officials to make the services better.
This change of administrative culture, a process which the EU member states have gone through in the past, includes giving more responsibility to managers.
You need to empower people at the lower level of responsibility, and this creates the conditions for better delivery of services, better accountability, better responsiveness of public administration.
In order to ensure better grounding of these concepts in day-to-day practices in Western Balkan countries, concrete steps need to be taken. The message is clear.
Focus on the regulatory framework, ensure the necessary resources, continuously monitor the performance, and also address the bottlenecks.
All these recommendations are promoted by ReSPA through regional cooperation, because only with joint efforts can national challenges be addressed.
Many efforts have to be undertaken at both technical and political level, but still strong political commitment towards the improvement of administration remains the key prerequisite for any change.
I'd now like to introduce the moderators for our next session, which covers a broad spectrum of innovation. Stefan Friedrichs, he is of German origin. He's been working with ReSPA and other EU organizations and international programs as a change manager, executive coach, and strategy consultant for public sector reform. In his free time, Stefan likes gardening, because he says gardening is cheaper than therapy and you get tomatoes.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
And together with Stefan is Vlatko Naumovski, who is the financial guru of ReSPA.
Thank you, Dimas. Yeah. Thank you very much. Welcome back to this afternoon session. I think we have a good participation. So we are in competition with the seaside with the nice sunny weather outside. So we are very happy to have you for this session on technological, organizational, and social innovation. So this morning you got a little gift from ReSPA, and all of you should have this compass somewhere in your bags or in your conference files. And some people were asking me, so how about this compass? So what should I do with this? Is it for navigating to the restaurant? Because the room setup is quite complicated. So that might also serve the function to find the restaurant or tonight's location for the social activity this evening. But it might also serve you to navigate all the different levels and all the different dimensions of innovation. So that was our thought, that we provide you with a very practical tool to navigate through technology, social and organizational innovations. And so let me just very shortly reflect on these three keywords. So we heard technological innovation, that's easy. A lot of you are doing that. You are setting up websites, you're creating online services, you're even providing apps to access your services online or via mobile telephone. So I think we can tick off this box of technological innovation. I think everyone can somehow understand it, even though it's still complicated. So the other two levels of innovation which we would like to refer in our session are organizational and social innovation. So what is organizational innovation about? So some 10 years ago, we started with project work. And some of the civil servants said, project work, this is not something we can adapt in the public sector. It's not working because we have our traditional hierarchies. So nevertheless, I think we are all experiencing that we are more and more working in project-based assignments. So we are setting up teams. Perhaps we are not that good in setting up cross-functional and cross-disciplinary teams. So that might be also in an organizational innovation where we might focus much more on. So to have teams of practitioners from different backgrounds, also involving citizens or groups of special needs, which we also heard this morning. And then the third one, this is even getting more complex, social innovation. So what's that all about? So I just give you one idea or one question which came to my mind. So are we testing legislation or policy enough before we scale it up and before we implement it on a national level? I think we don't. There are some experiments, some case studies where this is used. As an example, I can give you the example from Finland, so where they are trying to set up a pilot project, first testing, for example, the universal basic income with 1,000 citizens and monitoring which effect does this policy have on citizens, on organizations, and on social dynamics. So social innovation might be also something which we will focus on much more in the future, evidence-based policy making, and we would like to explore this room together with you in this afternoon session. So for me, it's a great pleasure to have my dear colleague Duško with me.
You mean Vlatko?
Vlatko, yes.
Okay.
So you have to know that we have a history together. So in the last session, he was calling me Thomas. So, so this is right now the reverse for you, Vlatko. So.
Thank you, Thomas.
So, thank you, Duško. So we will somehow play some roles in this afternoon session because I'm the guy who is pushing and fostering, who is very positive about innovation, and you are adapting a more critical and skeptical point of view of this innovation, right?
As usual, Thomas.
Yeah, good. So you know your role, and I know my role, and yeah, so perhaps I just can hand over to you, Duško.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Stefan, I'm ending the war. Stefan, he presented some good things about innovations. I'm acting, and I'm the bad guy in ReSPA, and I'm challenging things. I like to challenge things. So I would like to challenge these good things about innovations and question, what is the antonym of innovation? Think about it, antonym. What is the opposite of innovation? We will not use Slido, it will be too complicated. Have you heard about carbon copy? Go to Merriam-Webster, you will find that carbon copy is antonym of innovation. Custom, old, habit, all these things are antonyms of innovation. Honestly, I don't like the innovation because going back in time, going back in the carbon copy time, when the wheel was not invented, we would have been sitting on the beach over there, waiting for our guests from Istanbul to come before the snow, having a good time. But also the old ship that was mentioned by Alex from OECD remind me of the one very, very important law of fluid dynamics made out of Archimedes, who invented it through putting himself in a bathtub. Imagine a person like Archimedes that didn't have a habit or custom to take a bath, for example, like Louis XIV. Then something that we connect with innovation like Eureka wouldn't happen. So that means that some cultural habits, cultural innovations were part of the innovation of Archimedes. And also imagine all the people that had to put the hot water in the tub. So organizational issues are also important. Having these aspects in mind that innovation is not only about the new gadget, it's not about something which is totally, completely revolutionary new or presented as a line by Mr. Mitsotakis. Another joke. We come to the topic of this session, and we hope that after the heavy task that we had to wake you up after the lunch, we have done our job, and now I'm glad to have the opportunity to invite Mr. Irakli Kotishvili, Mr. Dragan Đurić, and Ms. Zuhra Osmanović-Pasić to join here at the podium and to give their presentations in this regard.
Yes, Irakli, please.
At the beginning, I would like to invite Mr. Irakli Kotishvili, the policy specialist, anti-corruption and public administration, and he will give us a presentation about the UNDP role in supporting the e-government and innovations in public administration. Please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. To be honest, I'm surprised that you actually named my name correctly. I was expecting something else to join the common vibe in the room. But honestly, I'm very happy to be here. It's my first time in Balkans, and in this beautiful setting, after lunch, what can be the worst time to make a presentation about innovations in public service? But I'll try my best. I'll try my best. I was very strictly warned that I have only 8 minutes. So I will set my alarm on now for 8 minutes, and you can stop me when if I overuse my time. But first, let me say a couple of words about myself. Before joining UNDP, I was public servant for 8 years in my home country, Georgia. And for me, the innovation in public service is not something alien. In my office, I was head of the Civil Service Commission in Georgia when we implemented one of the first electronic asset disclosure systems in my country, which was one of the first systems of using e-governance and e-solutions to deliver a common good, which is information about expenditures and incomes of public officials. And by chance, my office was awarded with a United Nations Public Service Award in 2013 for that particular innovation, which I'm very proud of. Okay, so without any further ado, let me start with my presentation. So firstly, what we do in UNDP to support innovations in public service. First of all, we look at how the modern technologies can help the governments on the one hand and the citizens on the other hand to deliver and receive public services. So our activities basically focus on 4 main areas. This is about designing of initiatives jointly with target groups, and I'll explain what it means in the following slides. It's about improving of access to information and how we support public offices and governments in doing so. Supporting closing feedback loops between the governments and the citizens, and also improving efficiency of public service delivery. And I will have several country examples in the end of my slides, which showcase the work of UNDP, which we are doing in terms of helping in public service, in making public service delivery more efficient. Now, the big thing in UNDP now is supporting innovation labs across the countries. When I say innovation labs, mainly I mean the government-owned innovation labs, government-funded innovation labs. So our strategy basically can be characterized in 3 words. It's a seed, startup, and scale up. So basically, I mean, I'm sure you know much better than I do what the government innovation labs are. But just to tell you very briefly. So these are the labs and partnership spaces which are created by the governments. People who are working in the labs are public servants, but they do not necessarily have to be public servants. You can contract people who would work in the innovation labs in the in the government, and they are tasked with a simple task: to challenge constantly the way how the public services are delivered and to offer innovative solutions in the delivery of public services. Now, how UNDP can help governments in setting up and promoting and supporting innovation labs? We are providing advisory assistance to the management of the lab, to the government, in some countries it's a Prime Minister's office, in some countries it's a Ministry of Economy who is in charge of government innovation labs. So we are providing our expert advice from, for example, myself, I work in Istanbul, in the Istanbul regional hub of UNDP. So, for instance, I can come in Montenegro and talk about the experience of Macedonia or of Armenia or of Georgia or of Moldova in setting up government innovation labs. So we are bringing our own expertise in the field. We also act as brokers between the governments and the startups and the people who have innovative ideas to seek and receive funding from the governments or from other donors. We also co-fund innovation labs so that they have some startup resources to kick off their activities and scale up their activities. And lastly, we help them to conduct monitoring and evaluation of the work that they have been doing in order to learn the lessons and transfer the knowledge to other countries. Now, the three critical characteristics of government innovation labs in Europe. First of all, labs are effective. They're not just better and cheaper. They are effective. They can deliver, they can offer, they can prototype solutions that are more effective than what this government is doing at the particular place and a particular time. Their work, the work of the labs is not linked to the election cycle. So the people who are working in the labs, they are not bound by pre-election promises or some other political nuances. So even if the government changes, the people who work in the lab, they stay and they keep on working on delivering public good. And of course, labs create the spaces for collaboration and leadership. Now, let me just very briefly go over some practical examples. I am aware of time. Thank you for reminding me with your... So first of all, let me talk about the example of Moldova. In Moldova, the Government Innovation Lab is placed within the Prime Minister's office, in the premises where the Prime Minister's office is. Currently, one of the most interesting projects that this lab is working is to create a system, a procedure whereby the honey producers in Moldova, because Moldovan honey is very, very delicious. I'm not sure, I don't know if you have tried it, but it's very delicious. But the problem is that not all the producers can export the honey abroad, outside of Moldova. So the challenge now for the lab is to come up with innovative ways to help the producers of Moldovan honey to make it compatible with the standards outside of EU standards or standards outside of European Union. In Georgia, and I had a conversation with a couple of my colleagues during the lunch, that they're interested in the Georgian example, and I can attest, because I come from Georgia, that we have one of the most advanced government-owned innovation labs, which is the part of that's my clock, which actually tells me
you have 2 more minutes
to go faster. So just to cut the long story short, in Georgia there is an innovation lab within the public service, within the PSDA, which is the part of the Ministry of Justice, and they work on very important, very interesting projects. One of them is is helping deaf people to enjoy, to actually use the emergency services, because right now, I mean, before the project was launched, they could not reach emergency services because of obvious reasons. So right now they have opportunity to do so using video calls and text messaging, which is a huge, huge improvement in this area. We also work in Armenia. There is a Kolba lab which is working on many innovative ideas, and again, this is supported by the UNDP country office in Armenia. I'm not going to go into the details of all the projects that Armenia Kolba lab is doing. In Macedonia, we had the climate challenge in 2016, whereby the innovation lab produced shoes which could generate electricity. And this is how you actually, maybe we cannot solve the problem of global warming in the world with this, but at least we can create an awareness about global warming and explore the ways how the societies can contribute to this common problem. Let me now just very briefly talk about the access to information, what we are doing in terms of promoting more innovative access of government-owned information. For example, in Ukraine, where I also have been involved in this project through wearing another hat of another international organization. In 2016, the government launched electronic asset disclosure system, where now they have more than 1 million asset declarations from public officials. And anyone can go to this website, which is on the screen, and search and download information about expenses and expenditures of public officials. And lastly, Serbia. In Serbia, we are also working to modernize and make user-friendly as much as possible the information, the public information, digital information that is owned by the public offices, so that the CSOs and other organizations, they can use this information in a systemic and standardized way for the common good. Would you give me 1 more minute?
One more.
Just 1 more
fine.
minute.
And then
in Kosovo, we we supported the government to launch the website that actually analyzes the data from public procurement. And with this website, you can visualize public procurement data. You can locate the winning company and how the money was spent. You can analyze and compare various data, and which is most important, you can see the red flags in the system, which public procurement was most suspicious, etc. In Azerbaijan, we supported launching of Asan, and I think Asan was mentioned in this room today, and will be mentioned again. I'm pretty sure. And the same in Addis in Albania. Thank you so much for your patience, and I look forward to engaging more with you during the session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Irakli. Some applause for you. Let me, so take your seat. Let me try to summarize your approach. So you are using technology to develop organizations to enhance the benefit for society. And I'm very happy that you also mentioned some vulnerable groups like deaf people using the emergency call system, because one of the comments which we had here is also we shouldn't forget about vulnerable groups which do not have access to the internet, for example, the poor, the elderly, or rural regions. So I have the idea that you are also somehow taking care of these groups and also try to build that into your service portfolio. And then the last thing, so we are very happy to hear that you are motivated to come to the region and also here in Montenegro or in Serbia or in Albania offer your advice. So I think that's highly appreciated to share your learnings here also in the Western Balkans region. Thank you very much.
And also we understand that not always Eureka changes the world, but some small things happening in some sequence manner that are addressing all 3 aspects of innovations combined together. In that regard, ReSPA have contributed a little bit towards the development innovation in similar manner. And Mr. Dragan Đurić, Program Manager, and Ms. Zuhra Osmanović-Pesić will present the ReSPA developed guideline for methodology for costing of PAR strategies. Please.
We have split our 9 minutes in most appropriate way. I will take 1 minute for introduction, and after that, Zuhra Osmanović-Pesić, which is appropriate, will present this methodological guide. Why we started with this activity? We all know that. More or less, we all have experience in development of action plans for some strategies, and usually the columns regarding the budget within these action plans are poorly fulfilled. On some way, we can find IPA, whatever that means, yeah, or state budget, or donor funds in these columns. Inappropriate budgeting or inappropriate forecasting of necessary costs for implementation of some activities which are necessary for fulfillment of goals which we defined cause a lot of problems. Therefore, having in mind that everything has its cost. This this piece of paper has cost, but not just these kind of things. The values, the goals, the objectives, our strategic objectives and goals also have some necessary costs. And we should envisage these costs in order to develop the strategic document more appropriate. That was the reason why we engaged Ms. Zuhra Osmanović-Pesić to develop this methodological guide. Thanks to that, we believe that utilization of this guide in the future months and years will help to our administrations to be more efficient and effective. That's it.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you very much in advance for your attention to this presentation. I hope that it will be interesting and that it will help us open up possibilities for some new innovative practices that can further strengthen financial management of government strategies. I will mention why we have decided to develop this guide in more details, how we have done it, what it actually contains, and what benefits we believe it will create for public administration reform. As Dragan well pointed out, we have started by identifying the problem of poor costing of PAR strategies in the Western Balkan countries. Poor costing means that strategies are not always supported with high-quality action plans that contain the amounts of funding needed for implementation of activities and the sources of financing. And this is not a characteristic of PAR strategies only, it is basically a characteristic of government strategies in general. This results in reduced effectiveness and efficiencies. You cannot create the results you want, or you can create them, but with spending much more money than initially planned. This ultimately leads to implementation failures. And not only that, it also negatively affects the overall fiscal discipline because government budgets are affected by unexpected expenditure increase or even revenue decrease caused by poorly costed programs and strategies. There are many underlying reasons of this problem. First of all, governments lack sufficient capacities to develop and implement sustainable financial frameworks, to estimate costs, to identify funding sources, put in place functional financing mechanisms, and finally do financial monitoring and evaluation. Coordination is also an issue, because government strategies are cross-cutting. There are many stakeholders involved, and roles and responsibilities of these stakeholders are often unclear. Actually, when you take a deeper look into government policy cycle, you realize that problem is wider, and it's not about costing, not about not knowing how to do the costing. It's about poor planning, because costing is only one element of planning, and it's about insufficient quality of the general policy planning and strategic planning systems and processes, because costing is only one element of them.
And finally, governments lack written or formal methodological guidelines for doing the costing. They do have or are in the process of developing guidelines on strategic planning and regulation on fiscal impact assessment. And this regulation does tell that you do need to do costing of strategies, but it doesn't tell you how to do it, how to collect data, analyze costs, actually produce the amounts and assign them to activities. ReSPA research papers from 2016 also recommended producing such guidelines, and the initiative was supported by the participants of the PAR network meeting in January this year. So recognizing these widespread requirements for costing guidelines, ReSPA decided to produce this methodological guide. The document contains generic guidelines for costing government strategies in general, but also additional guidelines for PAR strategies. Both are highly standardized. They don't account for differences between different countries or between the sectors. However, the contextual differences between the countries when it comes to PAR strategy are illustrated using practical country-specific examples. Very important fact is that this document is based on the assumption that you have already developed a high-quality action plan which serves as a basis for costing. In order to meet requirements of different users, options rather than directives are provided for particular issues. The guide is focused on costing only. It doesn't look into other elements of strategy financial management cycle. For example, prioritizing activities based on cost-effectiveness analysis, or managing the financial gap, or doing financial monitoring and evaluation. However, the costing guidelines are provided having in mind their potential implications on these other elements. Target audience are employees in government institutions organizing and conducting the costing process. The guidelines related to costing PAR strategies are synchronized with those provided by SIGMA, and they also complement the existing country's regulation on fiscal impact assessment and strategic planning. The document we have has 3 main chapters. The first chapter provides a theoretical background on key conceptual issues. It explains what the costs are, what the costing is, the key definitions, categories of costs, principles of costing, and costing methods. Its goal is to increase the general knowledge in these areas. The second chapter is Guide to Costing Government Strategies in General. It provides general guidelines and examples for costing government strategies in general. It basically follows a 9-step process explaining how each step should be conducted. For example, how the objectives of costing should be defined, how the data should be collected and analyzed, how quantities of resources and unit costs should be estimated, and so on. And finally, the third chapter is about costing PAR strategies. So what essentially it does is that it goes through the previously explained costing process and provides examples on how individual steps can be applied for PAR strategies using country-specific examples and also examples of good practices. In order to make the calculations more automatic and easier and consistent, we have also developed a calculation tool. And I will... Are we going to use that right now? No, we are going to briefly show it because I think Excel can break the monotony. So it has 5 interconnected sheets, and it is based on the so-called bottom-up costing method. Bottom-up means that you start with activities as the lowest level elements of the action plan, and you then calculate costs of activities to estimate costs of higher level elements, which are results, objectives, and finally action plan as a whole.
It would be a good activity to actually fill it out right now. Huh?
Yes, for example, for this event. This event would be a perfect cost object. So what we have is the action plan as the basis. This is what I keep emphasizing, because this guide cannot be applied for costing strategies if you don't have a good action plan. We have action plan elements here in rows, like objective, activity, output, and so on. And we have cost elements in columns, like salaries, materials, meal, accommodation, computers, and so on. So you basically need to enter the quantities and unit costs for each resource type, for each activity, to calculate the cost. It's quite simple. And then you can define some standard costs here in this sheet. For example, you can define average monthly salaries by different categories of staff. average price of consultancy fee or a computer and so on. So these units are then used automatically and consistently throughout the calculations. What is important is that this tool enables showing cost data not only by action plan element and by cost category, but also by year, because we want to make a good link with government budget planning. And we also make distinction between one-time costs, which are costs that will appear only once, like when you buy a computer or a machine. And then we have salaries of additional staff that needs to be employed and other recurrent costs, which are costs that typically affect government budgets in the long run and are often neglected. So it enables making distinction between the two. And it also enables, apart from estimating additional costs of strategies, estimating the so-called existing costs. Existing costs are costs of people already employed, already working on implementation of activities. These are often neglected and are required to be estimated by delegations of the European Union, for example. So it essentially enables full costing at the basic level.
I have one question. May I allow you?
Yes.
Considering all the aspects that you have mentioned in this presentation, have you identified some social, organizational, cultural innovations that have to be followed along with this methodology in order to be implemented, and what they may be, or maybe technological?
Actually many, because you require capacities of staff to use this tool first of all. But then in order for the information to actually be used, you need to have good budget management systems, financial management in the countries. And then you come to the issue of program budgeting, which actually allows linking of strategy costs with the government budget. Because if you don't have this budgeting methodology applied by the countries, you will end up with having these costs by line items. You will actually not be able to monitor implementation of PAR as a program. So yes, there are many. On the side of civil servants, you need to increase their knowledge and their capacities, but also systemically, you need
cultural
to have,
maybe reluctance to fill and get the gaps or something.
I don't think that culture would be. I think it's rather technical. It's the budget, because cultural-wise, this should actually motivate you, because you don't need to use calculator. You just need to enter data, and you can click these nice buttons here to show data aggregated or at more disaggregated level, higher or lower level of details, and so on. And some graphs are there.
Okay, I'm afraid that we have to wrap up. Do you have one more slide?
Actually, I have two more. This is how we have developed the guide. I will push it in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Because you have just stolen 1 minute.
Then we just take the last one, I would suggest, because we see the time scale here.
Okay.
Perhaps we can finish with your last slide right now.
Well, the last slide is about the benefits and value.
That's what I want to hear.
Good. Okay, so we believe that the main objective is to help making more sustainable financial framework for implementation of government strategies in general and PAR strategies specifically. And we expect to do this by using these standardized guidelines. Standardized guidelines will enable making more reliable estimates, which can then be used as the basis for A, government budget planning, and B, mobilization of donor funds. Also, this will increase the quality of PAR documents. Better quality of regulation of planning documents facilitates fiscal impact assessment and overall fiscal discipline. It also increases transparency and managerial accountability for the results achieved with the money spent, which helps internal financial control and accountability of public sector as a whole.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sucha.
Thank you.
So, thank you for equipping us with this tool. Like the compass, I think also your tool is helping us to navigate, to somehow structure abstract data into some common structure, into some common tables. And what we heard also this morning, innovation is not just about bouncing ideas back and forth, but you need a very disciplined approach. And using your tool, so I think we can also identify areas of social concern, but also of strategic concern, which we then can address also with innovative measures. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. And if I may just add, honestly, I had problems in trying to identify elements of innovation in this, because doing costing properly is not something innovative. It's something that you should do. You should just do it because it's a good practice. But on the other side, we didn't have such guidelines, so maybe having guidelines is innovative. Or maybe this whole analysis, as you pointed out,
So
can help.
I would like to add, so having the guideline and using it, that would be innovative. Huh? So there also has to be demand, and we would like to motivate having a look at this too. Thank you very much, you guys.
Maybe one sentence at the end to explain why we spent these 9 minutes here for the presentation of this.
It was actually 15.
Just to raise the interest for that. We will repeat it at our governing board meeting and ministerial level, but we will organize complete meeting of our PAR network devoted to this topic, which will be much broader and in-depth explanation of this.
Okay, thank you very much, Dragan, and thank you very much, the 3 speakers. So I would like to invite you to take a seat in the front row because we have some more colleagues joining us. So if you are allowed to leave the panel, the stage right now. So, and we would like to invite our colleagues from the region, which are already prepared to give their presentations. Milan, you are joining us. So where are the other colleagues? Vesna, Rosalina,
Enet Kireci,
Enet,
Selenulaj, Rosalinda Stojanovska, Stojova, Bojana Bajić i Josimov.
So you see there is a lot of movement here on the stage. We have some more speakers, but we will definitely try to have an interesting interaction with our panelists because we want to learn what's really happening in the region right now in terms of technological, organizational and social innovation. We heard this morning that there is an OECD innovation conference also next month. And so we are very sad that you haven't nominated your projects yet. So I think we have something in the region. We have a lot of successful projects which we would like to present shortly this afternoon. And perhaps you might also apply for this innovation award scheme of OECD because I think we have to represent the region also in these international forums. Vlatko.
Well, I agree fully that these are the potential representatives from these conferences to the other similar conferences in regard to innovation. I would like, in the interest of time, to go further in our panel of these 3 aspects of technological, social, and organizational innovations, and I would like to invite Mr. Josimov and Enat Kircini from Albania to present us a little bit about the organizational innovations in the public sector. We would like to invite you here on this table, so we would like to have some ordinary chat, interesting for the audience. As usual, Stefan will be the good guy, and I will be the bad guy.
Okay, Milan, the floor is yours. And so we start with a basic and fundamental question. So why is it important? So please present us your project in short sentences. Why is that a promising and interesting project?
Thank you very much for this short introduction. And let me just say it's a big privilege for me to be here and to share some information regarding what we do in Serbia and why it is important to us. So in order to ensure the proper implementation of principles and new institutes that had been adopted in General Administrative Procedure Act, which were envisaged to introduce to ensure introduction of European administration space principles into the Serbian public administration, and consequently to provide good governance and better services for citizens and business. Government of Serbia decided to apply organizational innovation by using existing capacities. In short, we developed a EZUP information system. EZUP is a short term, you can say ELGAP in English, but we call it EZUP. Maybe if I have time just to make some brief legal background. I would like to say that in Serbia, general law on administrative procedure was adopted at the beginning of 2016 and came into the force in March 9th, and it is applied from June 1st, 2017. But several provisions there that are posing obligation for the state bodies to exchange official data among themselves were applied 90 days from the entry into the force of the law. So the reason why this was done is that because the government of Serbia wanted to stop the practices that people are supposed to be a postal service for state bodies and provide them with official data. The ultimate goal of applying a new law is a systematic change in the operation of the entire public administration in Serbia, and also to transform it into the modern and efficient service oriented towards the interests and needs of citizens and business representatives. So during the drafting of the law, and especially after the presentation, Ministry of Public Administration and Local State Government established this working group. It had a task to discuss and consequently define mechanisms for efficient data exchange. This was important for us because we thought this was the crucial moment of transformation of administrative procedure in Serbia. So decree on obtaining and processing data about facts of which official records are kept and are necessary for administrative decision-making was adopted in June of this year. And this represents a legal base and legal framework for establishing web services on the e-government portal of Serbia. Let me just explain, this is the resource that we use, that we had since 2010. This portal is the unique and one access point to all the electronic services that the government of Serbia is providing for the citizens and the businesses. And so, because of a fiscal consolidation and budget limits, we had to use our resources, but we have to use it in a more innovative way.
Okay.
So, this portal, since it was created, it had this module that enabled all civil servants without any advanced IT knowledge to create web services for different purposes. After the adoption of the decree, state bodies who had official records and had their informational IT systems centralized and also their records electronic, those were the 6 state bodies, were making a technical specification for web services. And this was why those 6 state bodies, because there was analysis that showed that those 6 state bodies issue around 7 million paper documents annually.
Okay.
So
you identified the big burners,
yes,
and so my question would be to you, Milan. So what has really changed? So what's the consequence? So you changed the organizational structure somehow?
Yes.
But what's the benefit of it?
The benefit, first, the main benefit is that we gave civil servants one tool to do their work more efficiently, for one thing, and of course, citizens and businesses now use less time to obtain their rights. Furthermore, I think that one of added value is also mind change of civil servants and introduction of e-government. So I think that's an important issue.
So Vlatko has a point to make.
Yes, I would like to ask one maybe not very good question, because I'm the guy. Do you collect any data? Do you know how much this is in use? Do you please explain some of the things that are benchmarks for you that you think that are good or bad or that should be improved in all aspects of the functioning of the systems?
Of the function of this e-government system. Well, first of all, we after the adoption of the law, and we see that in practice, it takes a lot of time for official data to be exchanged between the state bodies. So we wanted to make sure to take advantage of the resources we have and to use them in a proper way so that we can make this official data exchange more efficient. But we don't, to be honest, we don't have any really good idea about benchmarking, and we don't have any adopted methodology for measuring the satisfaction of citizens with the services. So that's the one thing we will discuss tomorrow, and we already have some more ideas, but
which is an opportunity for further developments
yes, of
and
course.
future innovations in the area that may give some results in this regard.
Yes. So, Milan, I'm convinced, interesting project, the EZUP approach which you have adapted, changing the organizational structure, addressing the culture. I'm fully convinced, Vlatko, I have to say. So this is really the innovation type which we are looking for.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Milan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For your time.
Thank you. Yeah, please sit here.
Now, Mr. Enet Kercini from Albania.
So, hello, nice to have you. So we would like also to ask you about your organizational innovation projects in Albania, and perhaps you can shortly summarize, so what are you focusing on, so what's your approach, and why is it helpful?
Okay, hello everybody, it's a little bit difficult looking
at
that part, so I will start to look at it. Okay, we are working with different tools, electronic tools, basically to do our work. And it's important because without using these tools, numerically, you cannot do the work. I mean, you have to have much more people working out. So, from my point of view, it's not like an innovation itself, okay. But we are using electronics to simplify processes, to do it faster and better, and that's all. Saving time of the people. And then there are consequences, okay, delivery is faster, cost is lower, and things like that.
So it's very easy. We don't have to discuss very long about this issue. It's faster, it's more reliable, it's cheaper. Yes, so what's the benefit for the citizens then?
Pay less for the government.
Okay.
The same job can be done from 1,000 people, now it's 400.
Yeah. But how have you started? So it sounds very easy, and if it would be so easy, I think all the others have adapted the same approach. But so what were the challenges on your journey really introducing these kind of innovations?
Difficulties are every day. So change the people's minds, and I'm talking about bureaucratic people here.
Yeah.
Okay, it's difficult. However, we address it in 3 different ways. So there are projects, I'm not talking about a specific project, I will emphasize how we solved the issues last 3 years. So we address big projects, and when I tell big projects, I'm telling $500,000 and over project that takes too much time to develop the software and takes even more time to implement, okay? And then we're addressing through another band of the project with a lower cost, but you can have the product in months and can implement very easily. And we address it even in another scale with out-of-the-box solution. We use Google. And we address mainly issues that are unpredictable. So something that probably you don't know, but today you just notify that, okay, you have to do even this job. This lower band is mainly for capturing data.
Okay. So interesting to hear that you are using out-of-the-box tools and instruments. You mentioned Google. So isn't there some security or data protection aspects involved?
But in the beginning, we talk about open data. Yeah. So working for the government, basically, you have to publish everything.
Okay.
So we don't care about the... However, the data that we use are encrypted somehow, but okay, they are stored somewhere in the cloud. We are talking about the systems that administer information that in most of the cases you are forced to be public. We are not using secured or confidential systems, okay?
Yeah. So you are addressing culture, so you are addressing civil servants really being part of this innovation process. We had this morning an interesting comment that someone said, isn't it just a stereotype that older civil servants are not open for innovation? So what's your point of view?
Okay, this has to be addressed by the design of the solution. Okay. Even in our institution, we have let's say, older people than the newest one. Okay, the news guys get it faster. However, with a good design, you can solve even the older people issues, no problem at all.
Okay, so you're including all the civil servants into your process
Yes,
by
yes.
a proper
Okay.
design?
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
We address it with simplicity. So we don't prefer to go to the complex solution. We prefer to address it simple, then after 3 months, increase a little bit the difficulties, and then after 6 months, goes to another level. From our direct experience, giving the civil workers something complex in the beginning, you spend too much in training, you spend too much time, and the end product will need another time to count. Going with the small steps, it's more effective.
Okay, going with the small steps, you are changing your organizational culture. Once again, Vlatko, I'm convinced Albania is on the right track. We heard about Adisa this morning. There you are also addressing the first simple steps, and then we can scale up the complexity.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So do you have any...
I can just say that simple is innovative.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much for this perspective from Albania. Thank you, Inet. So we would like also to talk about some technology projects. So this is also all about innovation, and we have 2 colleagues from Montenegro, and the other example is then from Kosovo. Perhaps we can start with Vesna. So, Vesna, also the question for you. So, why is your project important? What did you do? And what were the first steps to address certain challenges in this innovation project?
Ok. Prije svega se izvinim, znači ja ću pričati na našem jeziku. Da kažemo, efektivnost i efikasnost rada državne uprave, odnosno javne uprave je upravo bilo u fokusu Crne Gore. Trenutnu situaciju koju smo imali u prethodnom periodu jeste da smo imali mnogo različitih informacionih sistema koji su bili uspostavljeni na različitim tehnološkim platformama i koji su obrađivali neku količinu, da kažemo, tih podataka u svojoj nadležnosti. Iako smo imali nacionalni okvir interoperabilnosti donešen, međutim, da kažemo, i zadovoljavajuće to neko upotrebu informacionih komunikacionih tehnologija kod tih, da kažemo, sistema, ali interoperabilnost nam nije bila na zadovoljavajućem nivou i naš cilj je upravo da smo željeli da zaokružimo, odnosno da uspostavimo interoperabilnost između svih tih različitih sistema kako bi napravili jednu efektivnu i efikasnu servisno orijentisanu javnu upravu. Također, bili smo svjesni činjenice da nismo imali na jednom mjestu u virtualnom prostoru dostupnost svih informacija o radu vlade Crne Gore, kao i prije svega dostupnost informacija o svim uslugama koje su nadležnosti javne uprave ili eventualno mogućnost da se te usluge realizuju na elektronski način bez odlaska u institucije. To nam je bio neko osnovno polazište da krenemo u razmišljanje i naravno imali smo također brojne loše pokazatelje u smislu dugo čekanje u redovima, zatim smo imali ogromnu dokumentaciju i veliku količinu podataka i dokumenata koji su imali progresivan rad u organima javne uprave, a da nisu bili dostupni prije svega građanima i privredi. Samim tim, znači, upotrebom tih informacijno-komunikacijnih tehnologija uspostavili smo portal elektronske uprave još 7. aprila 2011. godine i želili smo da to bude jedinstveno mjesto, odnosno bude taj jedinstveni elektronski šalter za sve elektronske usluge koje su nadležnosti javne uprave. Portal prije svega evo već funkcioniše 6 godina i možemo reći da danas imamo više od 240 servisa u nadležnosti 30 organa. To možda za neku državu nije neki veliki pokazatelj, ali za Crnu Goru je dovoljno, da kažemo, dobar pokazatelj da smo bar krenuli u to razmišljanje elektronskog načina pružanja usluga. Pored portala, kao jednog od projekta gdje smo obezbijedili građanima i privredi makar informativni dio o svim uslugama, da ne bi morali da lutaju od organa do organa, da bi dobili informacije na osnovna pitanja, kome da se obrate, gdje da se obrate, šta dobijaju, na koji način. S druge strane, obezbijedili smo i elektronski način da podnesu te zahtjeve i da u svakom momentu imaju notifikaciju o statusu svog zahtjeva. Pored ovog projekta također postoje i drugi brojni projekti koje smo uspostavili i koji također doprinose u tom tehnološkim tim inovacijama u javnoj upravi. To je da smo uspostavili prije svega, da kažemo, to jedinstveni pristup dostupnosti svih informacija o radu Vlade Crne Gore. Zatim isto tako da smo uspostavili elektronske sjednice Vlade, također da imamo informacioni sistem za elektronsku razmjenu podataka između organa državne uprave, kao i da imamo također sistem za elektronsku razmjenu dokumenata unutar jednog organa. I svi ti projekti, pored portala koji kažemo da nam predstavlja jednu od ključnih ili pokretačku komponentu razvoja elektronske uprave u Crnoj Gori, oni su u skladu, znači, odnosno donešeni su kroz zakonska rješenja, jer imamo zakon o elektronskoj upravi iz 2014. godine. U toku nam je također izmjena i dopuna, da kažemo, tog postojećeg zakona i također svi su nam zakoni iz te oblasti u skladu sa europskim propisima. Benefiti koje smo, da kažemo, ostvarili jeste da u tim nekim, da kažemo, istraživanjima u svijetu Crna Gora je na 17. poziciji po e-participaciji, na 47. poziciji smo po e-governmentu, a što se tiče nekih naših internih, da kažem, unutar države benefita, jeste da imamo taj progresivan rast registrovanih korisnika koji koriste portal i da prije svega imamo jako dobre servise koje, kad građani ili privrede prepoznaju, znači da su im korisni i da su im dobri, odnosno da im pomažu, oni ih u stvari i koriste.
I would like to ask, considering that you are obviously measuring all those things and considering the results that you have achieved from this endeavor, what are the consequences? What are the next steps? What are the considerations for future, for improvement, for optimization maybe?
Svakako, znači svake godine radimo informaciju o radu portala gdje konstantno pratimo koliko imamo porast kako usluga, tako i koliko korisnici koriste sve to. Također imamo i elektronsko anketiranje javnosti, znači koje pokušavamo što više da promovišemo kako bi dobili povratne informacije od građana da li im to koristi, zbog čega im koristi. A naše, prije svega, da kažemo, dalje buduće aktivnosti su da radimo ne samo na unapređenju ovih postojećih koje imamo, nego želimo da uspostavimo neke servise gdje će prije svega, znači, akcenat biti na kvalitetu i na upotrebljivosti i možemo već da najavimo da će biti novi servisi koji će obuhvatiti upis djece u svim nivoima obrazovanja, također servis prijava djeteta na rođenju, kao i elektronska razmjena dokumenata u postupcima javne nabavke. Akcenat će nam biti na tom jedinstvenom informacionom sistemu za elektronsku razmjenu podataka između organa državne uprave i njegovo povezivanje sa portalom elektronske uprave, jer tek na taj način ćemo ostvariti dobru komunikaciju građana i privrede sa javnom upravom. Jer prije svega u tom slučaju građani i privrede neće morati da prikupljaju nepotrebnu dokumentaciju i da je prilažu, jer ista ta dokumentacija u dostupnosti tih organa, znači kojima se oni obraćaju.
Innovation sounds good, really.
Yeah.
Okay, perhaps one last question. We heard also from your minister this morning that she also mentioned it's not easy. It's not a self-going project. You always have to convince different target groups, different institutions. So what is your main challenge in the implementation of all these complex innovations?
Svakako kroz ovo iskustvo koje do sada imamo, naš osnovni izazov jeste upravo u pružanju tih elektronskih usluga i dostupnosti, da moramo da mijenjamo svijest kod javnosti po pitanju elektronskog načina pružanja usluga i također da povećamo njihovo povjerenje u rad javne uprave.
Okay, so that's a nice conclusion. So we have to create this trust. Thank you very much, Vesna, for this case study from Montenegro. Zlatko, we have three more interesting case studies. So we would like to invite our colleague from Kosovo. So again, you're also somehow focusing on technological innovation and also this aspect of interoperability. So before we innovate, we have to do our homework. So we have to integrate the existing services on a proper platform, and we are very much keen to hear what's on the agenda in terms of technological innovation in Kosovo. Celine. It's work.
Faleminderit. Unë do të flas në gjuhën shqipe. Sorry. Në Kosovë ne kemi fillimisht me zhvillimin e numrit të madh të sistemeve, të cilat kanë qenë kryesisht sisteme të izoluara, që kanë përfshirë veprimtarinë e një organizate apo një ministrie ose një institucioni. Dhe pastaj në ndërkohë, paralelisht me këtë, ne për ndryshim nga vendet e rajonit e kemi të zhvilluar në rrjet qeveritar, i cili pothuajse mblon gjithë territorin e Kosovës, i cili funksionon si intranet dhe pothuajse të gjitha këto sisteme që janë më shumë se 100, të cilat përfshin shumë shërbime, të gjitha janë të integruara brenda këtij rrjeti dhe funksionojnë edhe pse janë të ekspozuara në web, domethënë në internet, prapse funksionojnë brenda për shkaqe sigurie, funksionojnë brenda këtij rrjeti. Gjithashtu, të gjitha këto sisteme, pothuajse shumica, janë të hostuara në një vend, në një qendër të dhënave, me cila ka nivel lart sigurisë, mirë po, pjesa më e madhe e këtyre sistemeve nuk kanë komunikuar mes vete, domethënë kanë qenë të hostuar në një vend, por s'kan komunikuar. Kështu që mbas shumë analizave që kemi bërë, kemi ardhur në përfundim të zhvillojmë një platformë integruese të interoperabilitetit, e cila këto sisteme do t'i interkomunikonte mes veti dhe do të krijojë një sistem unik për gjithë vendin. Kemi problemin këtë fushë kuptimin e interoperabilitetit semantik, sepse shumë shprehje apo shumë dhëna në një sistem janë të zhvilluar në një emërmëra të ndryshëm, kështu që kur vjen momenti i komunikimit të tyre ka probleme, kështu që jemi në fazën e rregullimit semantik të këtyre fushave, domethënë këtyre fushorëve në kuadër të aplikacioneve.
Okay, so we heard about your approach. Again, what's in for the different stakeholders? So what's the real benefit for your different target groups? So what's the consequence of your approach in offering this integrated platform?
Po, benefitet janë shumë të mëdha, domethënë si në saktësi të informacionit, domethënë pasi që tash të gjitha dhënat që do të jepen për zyrtar apo për qytetarë se për biznese merren nga regjistri civil në bazë të një numri të identifikues, që është ID numri, dhe në bazë të atij numri pastaj saktësia e informacioneve, baza e atyre informacioneve është e saktë. Pastaj kemi kriju nimëri shërbimesh, tash që po dalim veç të benefitet e përdorimit të teknologjisë informacionit, ne pothuajse kemi shërbime 24/7 që japim qytetarëve ta zëm certifikatat e gjendjes civile, të cilat në pjesën më të madhe të komunave, qytetarët mund t'i marrin në një kiosk në mënyrë automatike, pa pas nevojë të shkohet në zyre të gjendjes civile apo në bashkësi lokale që kanë qenë më herët. Pastaj deklarimi tatimor ta zëm në Ministritë të Financave, pothuajse bëhej gjithë në mënyrë elektronike, domethënë përmes internetit dhe s'ka nevojë të frekuentohen zyrat e administratës. Gjithashtu ne kemi filluar vitin e fundit, domethënë edhe i prokurimin elektronik ta përdorim, domethënë është në fazën sfiduese për momentin, mirë po jemi në avancim të atij sistemi, natyrisht pas integrimit në platformën të interoperabilitetit, edhe aty shumë çka do të jetë më automatizuar edhe më me perspektivë.
Selim, so we are here in a very intimate setting. Can you tell me a secret? Yeah?
Repeat, please.
Yeah?
I don't say.
Can you tell me a secret? Can you share a secret with me? Yeah? So I would be interested, from whom were you learning? So have you reinvented the wheel in Kosovo, or were there some models which you also took?
Ne kemi përfituar shumë nga vizitat që kemi pasur, qoftë nga institucionet që kanë ardhur, domethënë vizitat jashtë, sidomos ReSPA ka pasur një ndikim të madh në ngritjen e vetdijes dhe në sensibilizimin qoftë të administratës, në pjesë të administratës që ka qenë pjesë kësaj, Pastaj janë bërë një numër i madh i workshopëve të cilat i ka organizuar ReSPA, qoftë në fizibilitet study ose qoftë në studime tjera. Pastaj një numër të madh kemi realizuar vizitave që kemi pas në vende perëndimore të cilat kanë qenë të zhvilluara në fushën e qeverisjes, sidomos Estonia, Finlanda, pastaj Franca, Austria, Slovenia e tjerë. Pra, kështu që edhe kontributi i ReSPA-s në këtë fushë është shumë i çmueshëm dhe i dobishëm. Shpresojmë që do të jetë edhe në të ardhmen.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's good to hear that ReSPA is providing you value in this regard of technological innovations. Thank you very much for presenting your case study. Thank you. So, Vlatko, so the aspect of social innovation is somehow missing, a very difficult topic. So let's see if we can somehow extract that from our last two case studies. So would you like to introduce our next speakers?
Of course. Janajana Aljujus and Amra Sofic from Bosnia would like to invite them on the podium.
Yes.
Choose,
so,
but
choose. So you can either go to handsome Vlatko or joining me here. So
in my years, both of you are handsome.
Oh,
thank you very much.
That's a nice answer. Thank you very much. Okay, good.
Okay. So it's a handsome against them.
Yeah, good. We are battling a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, so perhaps you can also somehow start relating or start reflecting on the question. So why is your project or why is your approach somehow important and what can the participants extract from your experience?
Do you want honest answer or
Yes.
politically correct?
No, we would like to have the honest answer. We had the political part in the morning and right now we can talk about the details and also the problems which you face. So I would be very keen to hear that.
We were invited here, who knows what. We were invited by our agency, we would like to thank them, because our project is totally different of everything that is now in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I must say in the rest of the region, priority. Priority now, everywhere, is to have men on the power. We in Info House always fight against that. We believe deeply that women should be in the power always. But in Bosnia and Herzegovina, where we invented, for example, 3 presidents instead of 1, it's very hard. So what to do in that kind of context? For example, the rest of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the latest research shows, use their money to buy antidepressive. Yesterday we find out that Bosnia and Herzegovina people spend 2.5 million euro yearly on antidepressive, mainly Lexilium. So maybe that will be innovation.
They should do gardening, as I do, huh?
No gardening, no, we have mines. So we can garden only half of a day. But after Lexilium, we want to introduce something different. We want to introduce, my colleague Amra can say something more about anti-corruption initiative called Account, and I may say about why 101 reasons why vote for women. If you are interested, we can speak later on dinner or later about that, but we deeply believe that women should be in power. For example, we in Bosnia have 4 levels of government. 14 governments. And where are the women? Nowhere. They are just working bees. They are bees, they're working, and men are always in charge. And if you look at them, they are not even good looking. We don't know why they stay elected. But women, which are behind them, always work and always show results. For example, any kind of study shows that where women leads, for example, a public company or a business, small, big, or institution, it's less corrupted. So women in charge should be social innovation for all of us in this room.
Yes.
Amra can say more about anti-corruption initiative, but if you're interested in political participation or changing the government, changing the public administrative, I welcome your question.
Thank you. My role is to briefly introduce an anti-corruption case study from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and instead of gardening, I have to speak about corruption, which is not like probably the best thing that is happening to me right now, but anyhow, this is a very positive case study from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and that involves civil society organizations grounded in the anti-corruption network Count on Us, and the government at all levels in BH. Janana told you how complex political situation is in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The partnership between civil society organizations and the government is quite rare in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and besides it is considered an innovative approach. It's a huge success. Innovative approach in this case means that instead of criticizing the government or the government officials, civil servants including, for bad things done or probably corrupt behaviors, we partner with them to prevent and fight against corruption together. That's actually a good and positive example that comes from Bosnia and Herzegovina, which we are very proud of. Okay, so let me just tell you a couple of more words about Account. Account is the informal network composed of 90 anti-corruption civil society organizations that are actually interested in fighting corruption. Account activity is fully funded by USAID and is implemented by the Center for Media Development and Analysis and the Info House, which is Janana and myself here today with you. We focus our assistance across 4 general components: public advocacy on selected anti-corruption legislation, monitoring and reporting, raising of public awareness, and actually we also provide free legal assistance to victims of corruption and those who report corruption in public institutions, whistleblowers. We do that in 5 very hot sectors: public procurement, whistleblowers, education, healthcare, and employment in public sector. All these 5 sectors are the sectors that are more exposed to corruption in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I guess in your countries is the same situation. I will briefly tell you how we do that. Actually, by strengthening or advancing the partnership with the government institutions, we do a lot together in this regard. We actually, how we actually do that? Through the meetings, joint public conferences, signing memoranda of understanding. We fight together too. I will tell you for that what our major accomplishments, achievements are. I'll be brief. Okay, these are just a short list of what we have done in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Okay, we partnered with the State Anti-Corruption Agency, state level, talking about state level, on coordination of whistleblower sector. This agency grants protected status of whistleblowers while we advocate for development and passage of the state and entity levels whistleblowing laws, provides free legal aid to whistleblowers, as well as investigative reporting on corruptive behaviors within BH institutions. A new initiative has been launched to identify corruption risks in the state law of protection of whistleblowers, and you wouldn't believe how many different corruption risks we identify in this anti-corruption law. So that's our mission at the state level. At the federation level, which is the entity level, we do the same thing. We will be working on the development of the entity level law on protection of whistleblowers. In the Republika Srpska, which is the second entity in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we had a major success in partnering with the Ministry of Justice of Republika Srpska on development of whistleblowers protection law, and number of our recommendations were included in that law. So we are very proud of that. That was a very good example of how civil society and government institutions can partner and can do great things together. What else I can tell you, maybe just to be like, maybe I can tell you what are the most significant recommendations that were included in the law. Based on our recommendations, the RS law on whistleblower protection now allows external reporting of corruption to civil society organizations. Isn't it a great or huge difference? Yes. Exempts whistleblowers from court fees if allegations prove to be corrected, and reduces the statutory framework for courts to respond to whistleblower disclosures. If I have more time, I can speak more about this. If not, I will shorten my presentation. We introduced a lot of rule books on anti-corruption policies and procedures. In healthcare sector, we introduced anti-corruption education in 36 schools, and more than 500 students from primary and secondary schools in Bosnia and Herzegovina attended anti-corruption pilot classes. I mean, we do a lot of things. Well, for the end.
Yes.
One question, maybe.
Yes.
Throughout your presentation, I understand one very knowledgeable thing, like corruption is innovative. Anti-corruption is also innovative. Do you believe that you're keeping the pace with all these innovative approaches that you're applying?
Well, yes, that's right. We are very into this. We are happy that we can provide technical assistance to this. We can see progress, and that's the most important thing. And this is all for the citizens, and this is all for the protection of citizens, and we believe that along with the government institutions, we are on the same page. And that's what we actually fight for. I think so. And I can tell you that based on the latest, actually as the result of the first UNDOC's, UN Drug and Crime Organizations, a review process in Bosnia and Herzegovina, this partnership and this initiative was highly praised. I can tell you that.
Okay.
So this is the model that we would like to sell, if anybody is interested, so please.
Good. So what I understood is if we really want to make anti-corruption work, we have to be more innovative on the institutional level. So we have to bring together different social stakeholder groups to really give it a new push, some new energy. And I would like to thank you because you gave us some new dimension of this innovation. So we were somehow technological bound in the first part, but right now we see also the society level so that we can, by combining different aspects, we can be very much innovative. So famous last words from your side then.
Famous like I'm dying in Budva?
No.
I would just like to add to Amra something. We are proud to be partners with public administration on our anti-corruption or political participation efforts. But we are also strong opponents when it's need to be. Just last week, we managed to stop corruptive activities in one primary school in our own home, Sarajevo, by its director. So we can fight and we can be partners. I think that this is innovative for all of you who are working in this field. Because NGOs, foundations, civil society, we have knowledge, we have access to foreign donor, we have databases. Believe me, if I show you what kind of databases we have, you will be stupefied. We have, we learn to work 24/7 because donor doesn't ask for your working time. So we are natural partner, and especially we have access to media. For example, before 10 days, I realized that one of our municipality leaders doesn't have email address. He put his wife's email address on official page. So you should call his wife to have an answer from your municipality. So immediately we started campaign on Facebook. And another municipality, they called me and said, Janana, what's the problem? And I said, can you imagine British Miss May or somebody else to give her husband's email for official communication? And this municipality started to readdress all of their email addresses. So we from NGO are capable for lots of things.
Okay, so
thank you.
We will have a look at your databases during the coffee break, and thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I would like to invite Ms. Rosalinda Stojova.
Good afternoon, everybody. When I was invited to give a speech on this event, I was told that I had to speak about social innovation, and I said, okay. 2 days after, I said, social innovation in Macedonia, what will I talk about? And then after some investigation I have done, 5 days ago, I had a list of social innovations, and then I faced another problem. Which one should I talk about? So I decided to give an innovative approach, which is not very usual from my side, to get out of my comfort zone and to speak about, to present projects that I have not been involved in. So I will speak you about 3 cases in Macedonia that I have learned very soon. So please apologize me for reading or not having all the information that somebody from the project would give you. The first one is e-register, known as e-gradebook, in fact, which has been started by the Ministry of Education and Science on a national level. Started as a simple digital application where teachers entered the class schedule, the grades from the students, the inspectors could monitor the grades and everything that should be inspected and so on. The certificates for the completed year were printed and so on. It ended like a register for all the students together with the educational management information system, but it continued where? In the direction of involving parents in this system, where parents were involved in communication so they could follow the progress or regress of their children, and they could see if they are absent or present on the classes, what do they have for homework, and so on and so forth. So even they can send a request for having a tutoring for their children if necessary. So in this site where everybody is open to access, so far there are around 28 teachers, 300,000 parents involved in accounts, 500 principals, 300 non-teacher staff, and more than 100 inspectors. The next one is a project started by UNICEF. It's Early Childhood Development Centers called First Five, which is considered based on the fact that first 5 years of growing up of every children are the most important years of the childhood. Especially in the rural areas where we don't have kindergartens, what UNICEF did is piloted only one, this ACDC center, only for a few hours, opened for kids, nannies, parents, grandparents, even for the educating staff from other kindergartens in the municipality. So they could get an educational part of what is being done in the kindergarten. That piloted center was then improved and then replicated in now 22 up and running operational centers and 20 in the process of being opened. It was recognized by the law, so now over these centers, the ownership has also the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy, and also the municipalities, because in our decentralization process, the kindergartens are under the municipalities and under the Ministry of Labor. And there has been a standard for early learning, developing the standard, which has been adopted and mentioned in the law. Now they are not only self-operated as before and run only by UNICEF, but they are run by the business sector, by municipalities, by state budget, and also by any parent that wants to give some contribution. And there are even special telephone numbers where everybody can contribute in this centers. And the third one is Skopje Lab, which was mentioned by our colleague from Georgia, which is run by UNDP. What is the most important in this Skopje Lab is that now it functions on the local level. It is on the level of city of Skopje, and the main task is to design, to prototype, to test public services, to improve public services, especially on the level of city of Skopje, and to improve the sustainability. They use innovative tools and techniques to facilitate this, this process, and one of the most, let's say, biggest benefits is they can offer knowledge transfer, building capacities, workshops, and whatever we need. Even they have developed special guidelines for testing and putting into practice innovative processes and so on. And they are offering their services to any institution we can get. So these are the 3 cases. I think I have been very brief.
I have one question for you, if you may allow me.
Okay.
What about the citizens' involvement in this process? What about citizens, so to say?
Thank you for your question. It's a very interesting question, though. Yes, I did not mention anything about citizens. Maybe in this Skopje Lab they are involving citizens, but I would like to raise one topic that I have even mentioned in the event in Tirana a few months ago, that each of us, there is no straight line between administration and citizens. So we are administration 8 hours per day. The other hours we are either citizen, maybe NGO member, maybe business man or woman or so. So I think that if we can get outside the citizen into any administrative servant, we can get by default better services. So yes, it is good to involve citizens from outside, but to tell you the truth, in Macedonia, my experience when we were inviting citizens to to participate into some activities like this, the response is very low. So, as I said, if administrative servants can put the shoes of citizens and walk the journey that the normal citizen is doing, we can improve our services at the beginning.
Thank you, Rosalinda.
Thank you very much, Rosalinda. Thank you also for this dimension of social innovation, which you contributed. So we had some comments here that technology is replacing the direct contact with the audience. And so you said we have to involve the citizens. We should also involve our participants here. Vlatko, so how do we do that?
Well, I think that we should ask a wrap-up, but this wrap-up will be a little bit different than the other wrap-ups. And we would like your involvement in this. I would like you to imagine a word or two which will describe the output of this session, and connect to Slido and just type your words, and we will see what will come out.
And we also will relate to the participants directly in live.
Of course, to check whether we have done it.
Okay. So perhaps you can give us some keywords, and then we're just checking with you. So what is the basic idea? So what is one aspect which you're taking from our 6 case studies, and also from the contribution of Irakli and Sukhra? So what comes to your mind if you have to summarize the technological, the social, and organizational innovation aspects? Difficult question, but let's see who is first.
First of all, I would like to invite you to connect to Slido, because maybe your connection has failed, or maybe it's idle. So please open your phones and go to the browser, connect to Slido.
We have some women power. So Hamra and Nejana, so that's your point. Impressive, regular update, changing culture. I think that we heard also from Albania in it. So you are addressing your civil servants directly, involving them, also elderly or the more experienced public civil servants in the process. So we have innovation, that's definitely true, effort. So we have to go the extra mile. So it's not easy, as we heard it also from Vesna. So we have to address some challenges. So we have to make something. We don't just have to talk like you and I do all the time. So we're talking too much. So let's ask the audience. So perhaps you can choose someone.
My 5 minutes for turning back, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would like to ask this lady that is typing here something. Oh, may I?
Very important.
Very important. So, will you please tell me what was your word about the exercise that we have made?
About what? Sorry?
What word have you put in Slido if you have been...
No.
Okay, maybe the lady next to you?
I wasn't typing it.
Sorry.
Sorry.
What was the word that you put in and why? Simple.
Okay, good try, Vlatko. So
maybe we can use the manpower. And the gentleman over there. Will you please tell us about the word that you have put in Slido and why you think so?
In Albanian, can I?
Whatever.
Yes.
Okay. Ai kam vendosur fjalën pozitive. Më ka do pozitive kjo paneli.
Okay.
Positive.
Good. Positive.
So I will say
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I will also say simple, maybe.
So one more try. So let's try this part. So I have my dear colleague Harry. So Harry, so what's your takeaway from this session? So we were talking about a lot of complex issues. So what's your take? What's your keyword?
Yeah, my keyword is always in this kind of change procedures, failures. That it is allowed to make a failure, and that you must do it. If you can do it, blame free. And that means that it's all about leadership. And that word I didn't see in that in all those on Slido. But leadership, open leadership, is most important in this kind of processes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Harry. So I'm just seeing one word which is worrying me a little bit because it says preach. So where do we have it? So are we preachers? Are we sons of a preacher, you and I? So are we preaching too much and we're doing too little? So I don't have the impression that you're just preaching, but you're implementing these things. And I would like to encourage you also to bring your projects on an international scale. So we shouldn't always hide just in the region, saying so perhaps others are doing better or are more innovative. So let's really also sell the success which you have in your different countries, and let's tell a compelling story. I think we have a lot of things in hand which we can sell and which we can preach to the world, don't we?
Yeah, and I think also that failure, like failure putting on the microphone, should be celebrated, as previously mentioned.
Yeah.
Then the reward should be given to success, and we have to punish if we don't do anything. So
Duško, thank you very much. I would like to hand over to Dimis, and it was once again a great pleasure with you.
Thank you very much, Vlatko. Thank you very much, panelists. Thank you. And this is the kind of time when we want to breathe. Let's do something with our hands, with our arms, like we did before, a little differently. Please do it with me. Hold out your hands like this. This is a good one. Just hold them out like this. And put out your index fingers like this. And put them touching each other. Okay? And look at them. And now, try to look a little beyond your fingers. Try to look a little beyond. And just a little bit separate your fingers. Do you see a little sausage in the air? Do you? And that proves that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Thank you. Our topic now is mobilizing for creative problem solving in organizations. We need to be organized, collaborative, and systematic. To explore this theme, I invite somebody you already know, who is Program Director of ReSPA, Goran Pastrovic. Huh? I'm sorry, Program Manager. And also media consultant. He co-founded NGO Digitalizuj.me and is Program Director of the Spark.me conference. He is a man with 12 years experience in strategic management at the university, teaching strategic management at the University of Montenegro. In his free time, he reads about the newest management trends and listens to marketing podcasts. It's going to be interesting. Over to you.
I think we forgot one gentleman, Boris Brkan, who is also coming from Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he will be also trying to contribute to this shortened session because we exhausted your energy and we still want to have you present at the dinner. So we are very happy that the final session today will be actually embracing the government and how actually we can prototype, how we can co-create and co-design using artificial intelligence, using the IT and using the young sources, because next to mine we have, there was actually a plan to have one lady from Serbia, but unfortunately she got ill. And we do believe that this is Vlatko or Stefan who are still having this microphones, so they are trying to disturb our session, but they will not actually deteriorate the quality. I'm sure we will be better than them. Anyway, in order to widespread the spirit of Zoe, who is present with us with her energy, actually we talked that she hacked our minds already. So I think Slaven can help us to put on the film that actually reflects what Zoe would like to tell us about, and I think it's very interesting and relaxing. So let us learn a bit what Zoe and her team did in regards to regional hackathon that they have jointly with the UNDP organized. And immediately after that we will try to be short, effective, and we will not forget the scenery and the dinner. So short, we promise.
Hackathon in the morning, and teams started arriving. This year we have 8 teams from Serbia and Croatia. The energy is rising really high. Everyone is setting up their computers, and then what happens next? We're all eager to hear what is the theme this year.
This year's hackathon is held in Started Center. It's a central place for our local tech community. We are so thrilled that we have the Nordisk team here. During the day, all the teams can use different parts of the center and chill, relax, and also brainstorm.
Hey, this is the big bit, the theme. Whoa, hack and slash. So we've just kicked off the hackathon. We did a presentation at the start, and the theme is hack and slash. So this is all about the action games where you've got sword fighting, things getting smashed up, lots of action, lots of intensity. Everyone's ready to go. We're just getting started right now.
great. All participants were cool. They had a lot of hard work, but they were really nice. I like how it all went, and I like what I see on their screens. So it's cool.
The bell just rang off and the time allotted for the guys are over. So right now, the next phase of it is to just get the juries kick in and see what they are made of. The only way that I'm going to look at it is three major things: creativity, scalability, and variety. How much can they impress me?
As one of the judges, I can tell you the decision has been made. It was as difficult as we hoped it would be. So we evaluated all the games from all the various aspects. We know who won, and very soon so will you.
Mi bukvalno sad izmišljamo taskove, šta da ubacimo dalje, jer smo završili praktično. Evo sad dodatne stvari, eto, nameštamo. Evo, iskreno očekujem nekog od prvih 3 mjesta.
Iskreno da budemo pobedi.
Mislili smo da nećemo se stići, ali stigli smo uglavnom sve ono što smo donekle kao zamislili i neka najbolji pobedi.
The winner, the Nordiest Hackathon 2016 is... Future Gladiator reality show.
Neko štine, da pomislim, da poverujem da je stvar, još uvijek stvarno se nismo nadali, ali još uvijek da verujem. Sa 24 sata je malo i naporno da budeš budan i sve, opet tu su svi budni, vidiš sve ljude i to ti nekako daje snagu, ta ekipa da izdržiš do kraja.
Let me remind you of a disclaimer that Goran already made. This is not an all-male panel. I repeat, not an all-male panel. I do not want any of our photos ending up on allmalepanels.com and becoming a next internet meme. So Zoya, our colleague from Belgrade, actually the brightest member of this panel, was supposed to be here. Unfortunately, she got a really bad flu yesterday, and she's in bed in Belgrade with very high fever. And excuse me for my voice, I usually don't have this deep voice as George Clooney. I'm also probably a case of a flu or something, and I'm not trying to make...
Because Zoe is not being here, yeah?
I'm crying deep inside because she's not here. And one thing about our attire, we've both been in suit and tie from this morning, and we will be tomorrow again. So yes, we do know how to follow rules, but on the other hand, we prefer to break them. This is a panel about hackathons, and one of the things, the crucial things about hacking is breaking rules, exploring things. We were talking about innovation, and a key point of innovation should be exploration. And when I say hack, as in hackathon, I do not mean as an exploitation of security vulnerabilities.
Sorry,
I mean,
still this is not clear.
You're still not getting it.
Absolutely not.
Okay, how many of you, let's skip Slido, let's do it this old school. So please raise your hand. How many of you are 100% sure what a hackathon is? Okay, so then you're right. We're still not making sense with these guys. Okay, so hackathon is a place where your crazy ideas become a reality. You come in with your ideas, you spend 24 hours or 48 hours, and you get out with a working prototype. Does this make more sense now?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so can I explain
Maybe
what the
it's because I'm
hackathon
sleepy, yeah.
is not?
Yes, please try.
Okay, then I'll do the vice versa thing. Let's see what a hackathon is not. First, a hackathon is not a meeting of teenage boys full of pimples. That's not a hackathon. Second, a hackathon is not a meeting of computer programmers. That's just the very first hackathon used to be like that. Third one, it's not a meeting in a dungeon, in a garage. It can happen anywhere. Last hackathon we did in May was in Tivat at a beautiful summer beach resort like this one. So it's a beachathon, yeah. And it's not about computer programming. It's not about technology. It's about a social issue. It's about a cause. It's about a problem you have in your local community. We're just using technology to help us solve this problem. Now you get it.
Maybe I'm getting more clear. So ReSPathon, Balkathon,
ReSPathon, yes.
Beachathon.
ReSPathon,
Yes.
Beachathon.
Okay.
That's the...
I like it.
Yeah. Okay, I think I've abused this mic too much, and I have a great guest coming in from Bosnia. Boris comes from NGO called Why Not? So could you please give us first a brief overview about what Why Not is all about?
Okay, thank you.
Does it mean that you're daring doing something, or?
Who knows? Why not? Yes, I'm Boris Brkan from Sarajevo, from an organization that's called Zašto ne or Why Not? And what we deal is currently with accountability, transparency, and institutional openness in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we were established in 2001. Luckily, a couple of us has academia background in computer sciences, so we were able to switch a part of our portfolio on internet or online or in new media. So that's the basically what we are now. How to say, everything that was said previously in opening remarks. So institutional openness, accountability, transparency, rule of law, we are in a way dealing with it and trying to use new technologies to I don't know, give better presentation of these issues to the citizens of Bosnia.
I wanted to ask, if I may, who are your clients? I mean, you simply have to work with someone, for someone, about someone, so who are your primary clients?
Clients?
Yes.
Well, that would be citizens, that would be government, that would be media. It depends.
So whoever you are, whatever issue you have, you just say, okay, bring it on.
Sort of, yeah. I think we are lucky that we have really qualitative team, and so we kind of are doing a lot of research, a lot of analysis, a lot of writing, and so we are kind of gathering a lot of knowledge and then distributing it, advocating afterwards, and things like that. Yeah.
I would like to jump in, since now we have two gentlemen from the same area, and Vladimir Vulic is actually coming from digitalizuj.me or me, and you're probably having the same mission, and as I understand, you're working for the last 5 years intensively in the area. Recently, you've been even in London visiting Foreign Office, and I guess there is a lot of things to say and to share with us. So what would be maybe the most successful story or the impact that you did jointly with your team in regards to the region?
Like, the most interesting thing for me was, like you mentioned, visiting London last week and having a meeting in Foreign Office. And at one point in time, a lady from Foreign Office mentioned hackathons, and specifically thinking about possibly organizing a hackathon in 2018 for this region. And we met for the first time.
Why?
So at one point in time, she was like, a hackathon? And I was like, yes, we've been organizing hackathons for the past 5 years in Montenegro, and Our colleagues from Bosnia, from Belgrade, from Albania, from Kosovo have been doing it all over the region. And she was amazed because in her mind, that was like a very novel approach to solving problems, especially solving efficiency problems in public administration. In the Balkans, yes. You have a very substantial experience in organizing and running and designing hackathons in Bosnia. Could you please give us some specific inputs on these?
In Bosnia, but in region as well. But there is one curiosity I'd like to share here, because we are speaking in front of, let's say, people that represent institution or public service and things. And usually when we do a hackathon, we are trying to kind of to scrape data from websites of institutions, or to scrape PDFs in order to get data in order to do something.
Can you be just more specific? Scraping data
means writing a part of a code that runs through your website and gathers data that we want to use. And basically, because usually institutions doesn't have this data open in machine readable format, then we need to do that. And why curiosity? Because speaking with people from public administration, kinds of, for me, it's a thing to celebrate. It's a kind of, we are speaking about hackathons with institutions, probably to inspire some of institutions to open their data sets and to invite tech-savvy people and activists to together develop something. So that's kind of, for me, really positive story.
Sorry, I need again to add something, because my understanding of hackathon after listening to both of you is wider than just now focusing about the open data. For me, the hackathon actually enables all of us to jointly with the public administration co-create, co-design, co-produce. So to materialize certain ideas in the domain of public service delivery using the IT tools. To be simple and to go out from the specific topic, and then maybe we can go back again to some specific examples. But principally, both my colleague Ranka Bartolo-Mušikić, who was speaking today on behalf of our film, and I have attended UNDP. Actually, Irakli comes from the regional hub in Istanbul in May this year, when we were jointly with the guys from Public Procurement Working Group and also with UNDP staff prototyped in the domain of public procurement. So there are some people here coming from this area, and we have actually used the open data from public procurement agents in Serbia, who has enabled us to see how much of the public contracts and the tenders have been done per municipality, per category of the contract, and per institution. So it was interesting to see. It was only done in 2 days, and for the both of us who were for the very first time attending this process, we were actually assured that this type of communication can bring us towards some solution. But I also understood that hackathon itself does not give you the final solutions. It's just like a sparkle, or giving you an idea, a concrete idea, what can be done, and then based on that you can conclude whether you will continue working on it. So it is twofold: to actually show, to persuade, and then also to give some kind of basic pragmatical solution that can be advanced in longer period than just these 2 or 3 days that are allocated for the event. Am I right?
But yes, you're exactly right. And you mentioned 2 important things. First, the prerequisite for organizing a hackathon is having access to data. If you do not have a data set, you cannot organize a hackathon.
Thank you, Vladimir, for reminding me. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, when we wanted to organize this conference, we were planning to run hackathon itself, and then Vladimir helped us jointly with Boris and all other colleagues from the region to confirm that there is unfortunately not enough of the data sets available to be used.
Not enough is a euphemism for...
I mean, I didn't want to be rude, though, so I remember Nicked High School wants to be nasty, so I'll be also. So there were almost no data and 0. So we were really forced to make this panel as a replacement to our intention to make in real time hackathon or respathon, bichathon, yes, jointly with you. So this is the reason why we are speaking but not working, and why we are illustrating rather than seeing and co-creating jointly. Hopefully, as Vladimir said, and I'll recall on what we internally discussed, your visit to Foreign Office in London last week was also speaking with them about their mandate within the Berlin process. Yes. Many times today we heard Berlin process, and our prime ministers of the region met 4 times, and they were really having very strong conclusions that gave us some kind of a guideline. And we also have a political buy-in. Connectivity, digitalization is an important aspect. So I may say the hackathon and their mentioning of supporting power reform by hackathon should not be omitted or not be forgotten. Maybe the message should be repeated from your side, what we may expect as of the next year from their side and region and Berlin process.
None of these things is still official, but the thing they were discussing is that digitalization should be one of the 4 key pillars of UK's mandate over Berlin process. Yes. The key issues you had with organizing hackathons, like key challenges you had, apart from the open data, which is
I would like
basically
to thank you actually for really good point that you don't have to expect finished product after hackathon, and it's not like when you are organizing hackathon, it's an informal event. It's a group of volunteers, and I would say that is really important. That group of volunteers is coming to give you some solution of some issue, and you cannot. They are not hired guns, so you cannot expect from them to give you a finished product, finished application, and the finished product can be dangerous in some way, and I tell you later why. But the thing is that we are opening up a forum for different individuals from different backgrounds. Of course, part of them are tech nerds, tech-savvy people, and part of them are not. They are activists. They are experts in the field that understand the problem, and that collaboration of people of different backgrounds, it kind of filters out the best technological solution for something. So it's enough if you can get as a end product of one hackathon the idea where to go with certain data set, with certain problem, it's immediately, how to say, successful.
Yes, and so the aim of the hackathon is not to organize the hackathon per se. It's not once we're out of the room or out of the beach after 24 hours, we're done. No. In my experience, that has proven to be like the biggest issue or biggest challenge we had, Digitalizujme had for the past 5 years in Montenegro. Boris said it's a platform where you come in with crazy ideas and you leave with a working prototype. But the key issue is what happens with the prototype after that. There has to be someone in charge of support, in charge of mentoring, in charge of maintenance, if we want to make this prototype a fully working application.
Okay, thank you, Vladimir. We are approaching to our end, and before that, I would like also to kindly ask you to raise a hand once thinking broadly about should we think about organizing hackathon in the region, respathon and bichathon. So maybe the ones who would support this idea, I should kindly ask to raise their hand and simply to see. Okay, so I may say at least half, more than half are most interested for this, and we are happy that also Duško Glodic supports this because he's the first one to react yes or no. Anyway, I wish to thank you both for this very fruitful contribution, and thank you for accepting to be shortened than what we planned, principally because our colleagues are tired and we want to allow them to rest a bit after this long and exhausting day, being very much exploiting our minds. Now we have to rest our bodies and to prepare ourselves for the finalization, where Dimis will have only a few words and I will only have 2 sentences to wrap up, and then we are free until 8 o'clock. I guess the colleagues will correct me when we will be having the social dinner. Rosalinda, don't forget to bring me back my cravata, because my tie, I borrowed you and I thought you will be wearing it as an innovative approach, but you didn't, so shame on you anyway. So thank you once again, and Dimis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for persevering. It is very important now for me to introduce you to 2 people. Can we ask them to come in, Mireille and Marcus? Because 2 people have been working very hard behind the scenes. And they're over there. Can you come over here, please? The first one who is coming over this side is Mireille, over that side is Marcus. And they truly deserve your applause. Mireille is a Dutch national. She lives in Slovenia. She's a trainer, a coach, an illustrator, a visual facilitator, and a graphic recorder. And she helps trainers and facilitators in connecting, engaging, and have a higher impact with their learning workshops. Marcus is a graphic recorder, a visual facilitator, a speaker, and a storyteller from Austria. He's an out-of-the-box thinker. He helps organizations with social and ecological innovations, and in general helps people unleash their creative potential. Now, these great people have done some great work, because somewhere in the middle of the morning, you were asked to write down some challenges. And they have visualized those challenges. They have taken the time to synthesize them, and in fact, there are 8 of them. Right, are they on the slides? They're on the slides. Yes. Great, great. So let's see what they have to say. Thank you very much. Please sit down. Yeah. I'll hand over to you in a minute, Goran. Yeah, so, do I get the clicker? Thank you. So, from Mireille and Marcus, we get this tableau. This summarizes what you handed in, the small conversations you had. And the first challenge that has been identified, how might we discover the purpose of innovation in our own organization? The second challenge was, how might we overcome resistance to innovation? The third one is, how might we cultivate an innovation mindset? It's a deep word, an innovation mindset. The fourth challenge, for how might we mobilize the necessary resources for innovation? Number 5, how might we engage citizens, colleagues, and all interested parties in the innovation process? Number 6, how might we identify the skills and learning that support our innovative process? Number 7 is one I particularly like, we discussed it this morning, how might we build a safe place for failure? I think we all understand that it's part of our innovation business. How might we make it safe? And finally, challenge number 8, how might we shape our leadership and cultures to promote innovation? This is your work. The graphics are the work of our visual facilitators who will be with us throughout the conference tomorrow. My last word is a reminder. Tomorrow, come dressed comfortably. I will hand over to Goran now. Thank you.
Dear Dimis, thank you a lot for this intro, and I think that these 8 slides particularly emphasize what we talked about. So any other word in that regards would be completely adding something that we already heard. I would just like to add simply that graphic recorders and visual facilitator is a novelty to me and probably to most of you. And I would also understand this role being part of quality management and the entire new concept of ReSPA. So it would be interesting to mingle a little bit with Mirela and Marcus these days to understand what their backgrounds are and how they implement the entire process, because it is more than just what we saw. In order to symbolically present what we discussed, and it's really done perfectly, thank you. They needed also to understand the entire process, from the communication to the content, and also to understand how we reacted, because those pictures possess not only the content but also our emotions, state of the art in the region, and what we may give as an impulse from this event towards the OECD, towards the Western Balkans, towards the colleagues in Georgia, UNDP, EPSO, UNDESA, and Oman, Dubai, and all of you who have came here. So thank you for your nerves, thank you for your creative contributions, and I will correct myself. The dinner is served at 7 o'clock at the foreseen restaurant, and we are really expecting all of you to come to celebrate this first day. Thank you.